I think today.
And by the way,
I think Elizabeth, I just want to respond to some of this because there's a lot you just put out there. I think today in this discussion so far, however far we are in, maybe like an hour, 50 minutes or something, I think that I'm going to look at this tape and see a fuck ton of mistakes in how to handle certain things that I have made on my end. This has not been a good day for me. But that's not your fault. That's my fault.
I think it was an amazing day for you. What are you talking about?
I think there were a couple times where I jumped the gun on your argument that wasn't fair to you. And I also think there were multiple times where there are hypocrisies within my own country that I know in my head that I didn't lead with out front that should be led with, so that if you're going to make a point, you don't throw a stone from a glass house. And I'm sure people are going to let me hear it on that. And I understand that. Basically just had like a movie happen behind the scenes with that whole story. I wish we could tell that on air.
One day.
How, like one day, like tomorrow, next week? What are we thinking?
How about what's one person's lifespan? Like 60 or 70?
All right, that's not going to work. No, that sounded like a fucking, Steven Spielberg movie going on there. But
one day, it's just, the consequences, right? Like you say something and it's not up to me. I mean, I can say it like right now, but then other people are involved, so their lives will be in danger.
Oh,
you understand
so you're worried
what I'm saying?
about the other end of it. I
course,
gotcha.
Yeah, not me. Like, I don't care about, like, I did nothing wrong.
Right, and you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that works.
So for him,
right,
it will be not a good case.
Yeah, that would be a long journey home.
Right,
yeah,
right.
I gotcha. People don't know what we're talking about.
That's okay, though.
But Elizabeth Lane, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, you have a mutual friend, John Kiriakou. So John's guy, Simon, had hit me up. And I was like, yeah, I've been seeing... This is a girl's going to the Charlie Kirk shooter's trial, like actually like in the courthouse and stuff. Yes. So I'm like, I would love to talk with you about that today. But you cover a whole lot of stuff. I'm sure we'll get into it with all that. But you're from the country, Georgia, like not Atlanta, Georgia.
I always say I'm from the U.S., but I was born in Georgia.
Yeah, so you don't fuck with Georgia anymore.
I love the country. It's just, it's not my country anymore, So, and I would like to see this happen more in the U.S. when people have double citizenships and they have double loyalties and so on. Like, pick one country and be loyal to them.
Well, you've lived that. So, you have credibility to say that for sure. Mm-hmm. Did you feel... Well, let's start here. You're born in Georgia.
Yes.
I'm from there, but that sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but, whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can say I'm from Georgia. I'm proud of Georgians.
Right.
Like, it's a great country. It's an ancient country, second Christian country in the world, right? So people don't know that. They are predominantly Christian. They are very similar to Russian in a way, but they are not Slavs. So it's a great country. It is truly a great country. They share a lot with Americans. They, love to freedom and Constitution and all of that. They share that with the American people, but it just never was my culture. So I was born there. I moved to the U.S. I found my people, my country, home. So
how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I think the first time I visited U.S., I think I was 17.
Okay, so you spent your whole childhood in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah, I spent my childhood, high school in Georgia and so on. So I know a lot about the country.
Why did you come to the U.S. to visit the first time?
First time it was through, it's so funny. First time I went through UN conference, I think. It was like about, they got like these bright kids in school to do this UN conference. So that was my first visit to the United States. And as I recall, it might have been earlier than that, but yeah. So UN conference, because I was always interested in politics. I did a radio show back home. So
as a teenager?
Yeah.
What was the radio show about? Politics?
No, radio show was like cheesy, weird stuff, like just talking about relationships and, things like that. But my interest was always politics, even when I was acting. I acted like all throughout my childhood.
Oh, you were acting as a child?
Yes.
So did you have like Hollywood dreams or...
Yes, I did, actually. It's funny, like everyone asks me, like, did you move because of Hollywood? And I kind of give into it and say, sure, yes, I did. But reality is no, I actually moved for a completely different reason, which sounds stupid and funny. But when you think about it, it's not really stupid and funny. So in high school, I got an assignment, okay? So I was supposed to pick a president, any president or a leader of the country that I thought did something exceptional, and then write about his character, like what he left as legacy and so on. And I was like, okay, I don't know who to pick, right? So I'm going through like, who would I like? I thought about maybe Alexander the Great. I mean, he's still a leader, great. I stopped at Kennedy.
Yeah, I knew where that was going.
Right? And I was like going through his life, listening to every speech that I could find.
Pull that mic in just a little bit, Elizabeth. You're good.
So going through like everything that I could find about this guy. I mean, ask me anything about Kennedy's. I can tell you everything. Like their villa, Hickory Hill, that they used to like gather and play football. And I know everything, right? I fell in love with the ideologies this man had. And I was like, whatever this guy is about, I want to be part of. And that was when I decided I want to be part of the United States and everything it is about. Unfortunately, we are no longer about those things, but I believe we can go back to it.
I think some people in power are no longer about those
True,
things.
very
I think
true
a lot
statement.
of people here are about those things. What types of, on a broad 30,000 foot kind of view though, what types of ideologies about Kennedy specifically stood out to you?
I think first and foremost, he was for people. He believed that you can give power to people and they can determine what the course of the country should be. And which is actually opposite of what elites believe, right? Like they believe that, no, you got to be controlled. We have to like, what Larry Fink said was force the behavior. Remember that? Like, so I don't believe that. I also don't believe in full democracy. It didn't work out, obviously, for Greeks, right? I believe that it can be somewhat of a hybrid, or it can just be what America was based on. You know, when founding fathers got together and figured out, okay, so maybe the best model is the model that we are creating here for people to, kind of have a say in what they want to be and how they want to be. By giving them freedom of speech, by giving them freedom of religion, all of that.
Right.
But at the same time, America is a kind of a bureaucracy, right? So bureaucracy is not full freedom. It cannot possibly be. So I think that's a great hybrid. It's just we need to stick with it without becoming corporate fascism, which we have became.
Meaning, if I'm understanding this correctly, where it remains or should remain purely like a mix of democratic and republic principles.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I got you.
Well,
So
what do you think?
I would agree with that, the way I just put it. I want to make sure I unpack what you said later on some of that, because there was a lot there. But the idea that like you have a mix of the like pure democracy is where technically every single thing ever is voted on. You can't take a shit without a decision being made. That obviously wouldn't be possible to have. But when you have people making a decision on your behalf, and I'm getting a little beyond democracy and republic pure definitions here, but like when you have people that you select democratically to make some decisions on your behalf that are in line with what you elect, which is how it's mostly supposed to work, and hasn't worked out very recently. But, you know, that in that system to me is a pure system. To your point, I think we have had a bastardization of it. And I think the last thing you said is actually a really important part, which is that you have, you know, this kind of corporate matrix where one feeds the other. I've always, I brought this up. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. But like,
I call it corporate fascism. And I hear, and tell me what you think about this too, because I hear U.S. is becoming communist. Like, no, it's not. It's becoming fascist. It's absolutely becoming fascist. And there's a huge distinction between these two. Yes. And from someone who comes from a commie country, which was Georgia, right? We were communists, much like Russians. Like, I can recognize the signs that it's not communism. It is fascism that we are becoming, which is more dangerous, in my opinion.
What are those signs?
Like, for example, what's the difference between communism and fascism? We don't have to go like far in deep to it, but do you own your house when you buy it in the US? You kind of do, right? It's your property. But at
the
same time.
You pay off your mortgage.
Yeah. But you're dependent to even have that house. You're kind of dependent on all these payments, and you're paying to who? Who are you paying to? To the government necessarily? No, you're paying to a bank, right?
Yes.
So you have corporate elites. They're eating you up, which is like pretty much what fascism is, like corporate elites getting together, deciding what's good for what? The state, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have that in communism. You can have whatever you want for free, but it doesn't belong to you.
The state, in this case, is playing the corporates.
Yes.
Yeah. So, China's a good example.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yes.
So in communism, like my grandma, and I grew up more with my grandma than my parents. Like that's another story. She lived.
A lot of other stories with Elizabeth. She says that.
It's a lot.
That's a whole another one.
So the thing is, when I was even like, as I remember myself, like 5-year-old, right? I wouldn't go to bed without a story. Like, yeah, like I was like, staying at my grandma's, said, tell me a story. And she was like up here, like with the stories, but she would tell me these like stories from her life, right? So, which was like fascinating. And she lived communism. So she knew what it was like. She lived during Khrushchev. She remembered Stalin as a kid. Like she remembered all of that stuff. So I was like, tell me a story. And I gathered so many stories. So I know like what life looked like in communism and in Soviet Union, even though I was never part of it, because when I was born, it kind of got dismantled, right? In 1991 with Gorbachev and all that, that we can talk about as well. Freaking idiot, Gorbachev. So, and
the man who took down the wall.
He was a complete moron.
Took down the wall.
So, and caused what? Caused us to end up exactly where we are today. We can talk about that.
I think that was more Yeltsin, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Yes and no. Gorbachev bought into Western promises. It was Gorbachev who was promised that NATO would not, advance an inch. So who promised exactly? Like the same people that were pretty much controlling the CIA, the same elites. What was Baker and Bush? Bush was not a CIA puppet, not a puppet, but the director.
Was the CIA.
Yeah, he was the CIA. His entire family crafted this agency. You know this really well.
Prescott.
So exactly,
that, yeah.
And the CIA agent tells you that NATO would not advance, and you believe him, and you make your 20-year plans in the future according to what he says to you. Are you stupid? Like, you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Like
who knows if he actually believed all of it though? Because unfortunately with the politicians, and this is just how it is for better or worse, usually worse. It's one thing what they tell us and it's another thing what they say behind the scenes.
But he acted as if he did, right?
Sure.
So he put down the wall. He allowed the unification. And then he continued the course as if he believed. I don't know if he actually believed or not, but look at his actions. That's how, I don't care what you say to me if you're doing the opposite, right? So your actions speak louder than your words. And seems to me that Gorbachev actually believed in it. And Yeltsin became a puppet, which we can talk about too. Yeltsin was such a big puppet of the West that I don't think I've ever seen Russian president more dependent on the elites and what
he was dependent on something. That man for 8 years was never sober.
Never.
Can tell you that.
Have you seen that clip when he almost fell?
Yes.
He's standing and randomly just almost falls. It's
You know me. I like to dress comfortably and not think about too much at all, which makes wearing dress clothes a big to-do. Sure, they look sharp, but they're stiff, hot, and high maintenance, which of course makes it hard to actually feel comfortable. And that's why I am a fan of Mizzen & Main. Mizzen & Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics so that it's effortless to feel sharp and look great. Mizzen & Main actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and since then, they perfected it with modern fabrics. All the shirts and pants you're gonna find with them look refined, yet they're stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, and completely machine washable. No ironing, no dry cleaning. When you put their clothes on, you'll feel the difference instantly. Professional style that's actually comfortable, whether you're in the office, on the road, or even on the golf course. It's a timeless style you can invest in once and enjoy for years. That's why thousands of guys swear by Mizzen & Main when they want to look great without the hassle. Right now, Mizzen & Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com. That link is in my description below. Promo code Julian20. That's Mizzen spelled Mizzen and Maine, MAIN.com, promo code Julian20 for 20% off. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states, but don't do that. I need you supporting the show, so hit that link down below. Thank you. The fact that he was in charge like during the Clinton years too, it's just like imagine being a fly on the wall with the two of them in a room.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Clinton, like who was a chameleon. Like I've had, what was his name? Gary Burns, I think he wrote a book about it, former Secret Service agent. Like he said, this guy was a pathological liar.
Yeah, no
like,
shit,
and
Sherlock.
he was, and he was so good at it. He said that if Bill Clinton told me my name was not Gary, I would actually pull up the card to see if it was.
That's right.
Like that's Bill Clinton. Yep. And now pair that with the drunk, Yeltsin, who's like, oh, West, like what? We are friends. Like, what are you talking about? So yeah, they totally bought it.
Yeah, Clinton is one of those guys, and I've heard from people that have met him over the years who didn't like him at all, hated him. Yeah. But then they met him, and they're like, "Fuck, you can't not like
you're
this
such a nice guy.
What the fuck?" I don't believe any of that stuff they say about you.
True.
Like they go, even if they're like, I'm talking some dudes I've talked to who are like the hardest core Republicans who hated him back then and whatever. And then they'd meet him and they're like, God damn it, he's a good time. Something about that guy. I don't know.
He's very good. Like he's very good. I think that's part of the reason why Bush kind of like put him under his wing, right? This is where people don't connect the dots. Like, you understand he was a governor of Arkansas, right? The CIA's drug operation.
Right, where Mina was.
Right, exactly. Barry Seal and all of that. And all of a sudden, I think Clinton, number one, was too charming. And second, he was just a good little boy for the CIA. And then he becomes the president.
Right.
And even though he's Democrat, by the way, which you would think that a Republican like Bush would not like someone like Bill Clinton, right? Yet he said what? Like he's like my son or something like that. Really? I wonder how that went down. Like what did he do?
They all go to the same steakhouses on K Street. Exactly. It's a giant, like George Carlin said it best, and it gets truer every day. It's a giant club, and you're not
part of it. Yeah.
And you see people go in there, whether it be a congressman or a senator, or, even with Trump, like as president, who may come in and they may seem like more of an outsider or whatever, and then you see the kind of system swallow them up. But we got into this because we were talking about communism and fascism. I don't want to get off that because it's an interesting point. You're absolutely correct, by the way, in the clear distinctions in how they carry things out.
Exactly.
I overgeneralize in the past, and purposely so. I'm okay with it because what they do both have in common is that they're both totalitarian. They both seize control. So I've always looked at it like communists hate fascists. That's a historical thing. But they hate each other because they see each other in themselves. Even if it's like you do it with this or you do it with that.
It's also competition, right? Like they both want to be on top. And it's like, well, they are in competition and they're exactly alike in terms of what they see the future should look like, right? So it's scary.
Yeah.
But I always thought, honestly, that fascism was more scary than communism because communism, here's the problem with communism. It will destroy itself. It will get to the point where it will eradicate itself. And that's what happened with Soviet Union. It was not American propaganda. It imploded from the inside because communism does not work. It doesn't work. Unless it's
Question on that. So you don't think, because that would be the propaganda I'd be okay with if you're trying to like stop communism or something without, overthrowing governments and killing millions of people. You don't think there was some sort of like messaging that the United States was able to get in there to push people?
I mean, messaging, well, yes and no. So messaging was always there. But I mean, communism did not break down because of American messaging or because of CIA's hard work or something. It broke down because Russian people were never naturally designed to be a communist. And neither were Georgians. Like I said, how did I start with when I explained what Georgia was? They are freedom lovers. If you knew Georgian past, I mean, these guys are like this big, okay? Like in Caucasian Mountains. By the way, word Caucasian comes from my people. Like Caucasian Mountains. What is that? Where is that? In Georgia. So Caucasian comes from the word itself from Georgia. So these people managed to survive like through centuries and centuries of wars and invasions. And like people are shocked. How are you a nation still? How? Well, you're telling these people that now they're going to bow down to communism? Like, wrong crowd, bro. Right. You know? So that's what imploded communism. But by itself, it's a faulty ideology, right? It's not going to last. Now, fascism is a little bit of a different case.
Yeah, why?
Like, it allows elites to flourish. And it's not about one dictator like Stalin or, you know, Xi or whatever. Like, it allows multiple devils and multiple heads on one dragon, right? And it's really hard to fight. I mean, look at what's going on here. You have a corporate, like in America, we have a corporate fascism. Tell me exactly who rules BlackRock or Vanguard. Can you tell me all the names? Can you tell me the shadowy people behind? No, you can't. You can tell me that, you know, yeah, well, CIA director knows nothing. What does CIA director know? Well, take Kennedy's case. Kennedy changed the CIA director. He kicked out Allen Dulles. They killed him anyway.
Right. Allen did it from his Georgetown
exactly,
apartment.
Because he had loyal goons at the CIA that even director didn't know about.
That's right.
So
director is a political appointee.
Thank you. And the president here is a 4-year employee. There you go. So that's why it's more dangerous. And that's why dear Prescott Bush, almost overthrew Roosevelt in something called the plot. I'm sure you've heard of it, right? When they tried to overthrow Roosevelt. For what? Fascism, dictatorship in America.
That's right.
Because he knew fascism can last.
You're talking about the Smedley
Butler, yes. Yeah. I'm so glad. I'm here with intellectuals, guys. I don't get this often.
Well,
okay, it's
I appreciate you calling me an intellectual. That's one from New Jersey. Put that on the board right there. We got that on tape, right, Brendan? No. Oh, God damn it. That's the one time you're supposed to be rolling. We got Brendan in the studio today doing a little behind the scenes. But yeah, so one of the things I've always talked about, it's just interesting to hear you have it where it's like communism and fascism. Fascism's where the corporates control, communism's where the government controls.
Right.
But the same question of like the balance exists here in America. And I've always brought this up because it's a really tough answer where it's like the buck is always going to stop more somewhere. It's just the nature of like physics. When you roll a ball in a room, the room's never perfectly flat. So one side is going to lean more towards. And it's like, I think communism and fascism are amazing examples as to why you don't want the buck stopping with the government, but you also don't want the buck stopping with the quote unquote free market, because then it becomes very not free.
I agree.
Right? So how do you find that equilibrium in America where, okay, both of these things have to exist. Okay, there's powerful people in both. There will always be some aspect of that, but at least like the people, the 99% of us are represented.
Right. Well, I mean, you're asking a very tough question.
I know.
And it's really hard to answer because I always thought, I don't know what exactly like your thoughts are when it gets to corporate or government, right? I actually thought, I think Americans have been brainwashed into thinking that corporate should have more power. I actually thought that no, I think it should be government. And I'll tell you why I think that. Because government, I can vote in, vote out, and I can impeach. I cannot vote in or vote out a CEO or a shareholder, or I cannot impeach them. What I cannot even do is convince people not to buy a certain brand. They will still go for it when there's like, you know what I mean? Like there's need for it. And you saw what happened with what was that company that was in hot waters recently for like child trafficking?
Cracker Barrel? Oh,
like
no. Sorry, Cracker Barrel. That wasn't where I thought that was
anyway,
going.
The point is I don't remember exactly which company it was, but they got in hot waters and their sales, were affected like a month or so. And that's it. Right.
For child trafficking?
Yeah, something like that. Like either child or sex trafficking. It does. Anyway, the point is.
So it was like a company? Can we pull up who that was?
Like I think, was it Wayfair?
That's what I was thinking. Was it Balenciaga?
Wayfair.
People
I think
they were like shipping kids through Wayfair.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I don't know if that's true, but like I'm giving like example,
right? So
right?
it's not true.
Yeah,
all right.
It was bad PR for like
I'll bet it was bad PR. I didn't hear about that.
So what happened is something like this goes out, right? And it still didn't really affect them. Do you understand what I'm saying? And like Amazon, everyone knows that Amazon's employees are working like, slaves pretty much.
They wear diapers because they can't take a fucking bathroom
There you
break.
go. Thank you. So that stopped Amazon sales? Like people got all of a sudden very, honorable and said, we're not going to buy from Amazon anymore. No. So you can't fight corporate world in any way. You can vote them out. You can vote them in. You cannot convince people not to buy from them. You can't do that. But what you can do is you can vote in a congressman. You can vote for your government in or out, right? Like you can change these people. You can impeach a president because you have good guys that you voted for. Like there you have some power. But what power do you have in a corporate world?
I agree with the corporate world part. It just becomes tough on the other end because the corporates pay the politicians that you vote in.
Good point. Well, then you start freaking lobbying. Stop freaking lobbying. Like you stop lobbying.
I would like that.
There. And I just never could wrap my head around why is lobbying allowed and why is foreign lobbying allowed at all. Like it's crazy to me. So stop doing that and you have cleaner version of your government. And then the government can regulate the corporate world. You can, what was it? I guess what we are trying to say here, if it's a hybrid of government power and corporate world, then it can work. But if one has more power than the other, it won't.
Yeah, you're talking about equilibrium.
Yeah. So, but how do you get to that equilibrium? You certainly don't get to it by brainwashing American people to take government's powers away, because that's what corporate world wants, right? Like that's exactly what they want. Then they are unregulated. Now, after this crazy guy, Luigi Mangione, killed this guy, the CEO, right? Now they started this narrative, well, we should hide all the names of corporate CEOs and all that. Now you can't even get to them and know exactly who they are. Okay, like how is that good? How is that good? You can lose that battle.
It's not. This is where, I'm an optimist with things. I think we work through things. That doesn't mean you don't have bad times, and you can't recognize that though. And this is where I look at this certain fragility that we have in society now, where it scares me a little bit because there is such a gap. And let's call it what it is. What underlies everything we're talking about is the American dream, and to be more specific, economic opportunity. Now, both still exist in this country, but we can all read charts. And you look since the early 1980s, the chart is absolutely clear as day. You see it go like this.
Exactly.
To where you have a smaller and smaller class that has more and more money, and the middle class of America, which is where the American dream of suburban life, family, white picket fence and a dog, and everyone dies happy and doesn't have to worry about their retirement. That's where that lives. That has shrunk more and more and more. And there's a million factors that go into that. But I think what that does to society, of course, is it takes away hope, it generates anger, and it also then can feed on fear. And we are seeing all of those things come together right now to the point that I don't like the healthcare system at all. I think it's horrible. By the way, they pay off the whole government too. So I think it's despicable in a lot of ways. It's a group think problem. When you then suddenly have a part of society saying, therefore, a rando can rent a city bike, drive down 57th Street and murk a guy at 6 a.m. in the street in New York because of the job position he has. I understand your anger at the industry. Don't disagree with that. The precedent of that and the fact that so many people are like, yeah, that's fine. That's a little scary to me.
That's very scary. Like the problem is in people themselves. Yeah. But these people have been brainwashed by who?
The corporations?
Yeah, and the CIA. Why do we call this military industrial, I would add intelligence complex? Like from the days of TV and radio, that's what they've been preached. Like they've been brainwashed. So you can't expect, and above that, they are too busy. So that goes back to like, do we really have the economic opportunity as we think we do in this country? That's another question, right? Because like, compared to who? Because the most important thing we need to ask in life is compared to what and compared to who? Because you can say, I'm smarter than Elizabeth Lane. Okay, great, good comparison. But if you say I'm smart, like compared to who? To Einstein? Or to me, to someone else? Like maybe you're dumb compared to Einstein, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like Americans think that they still got the best in this country of the world, but that's not true. It's no longer true.
In what ways is that not true?
In many ways, there are countries that are much more developed than us. There are countries that are
more developed.
Yeah.
Like, are you talking about like architecture and infrastructure?
In any way, like, excuse me, like take the U.S. and United Arab Empire and Dubai.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about when you infrastructure? Like, have you been outside in New York? Like, you would get a heart attack. And New York's supposed to be the skyscrapers and all the, because certainly I don't have that in Utah. So yeah, like more developed in what way? So is your healthcare system in top 20? No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, then education, what about that? No. I can argue that even like I travel a lot, okay? I travel all the time. So travel is needed to understand what's really going on in other countries as well. I could argue that there are countries that even with like day-to-day lives are happier, more well taken care of, whether it gets to your income, maternity, paternity leave or whatever. So then the question becomes, why are we still stating that we are the best? Like, is that like an illusion of some sorts? Like, is that I want to be the best, so I'm like going to talk about it and it's going to happen? Or like, what is that?
I think it's an overall average because the things you say right there, like I said, we have a lot of problems right now. And I think if people rest on those laurels, that's why it's good for you to point that out. Our education system, our healthcare system, our infrastructure.
Well, it's not the only one.
These are all, absolutely. These are all true. When you take the average of everything, even if the world is kind of a piece of shit right now, overall, I think people could very well make the argument that America is still the best shit on top of the pile of shit. And obviously, that's a very pessimistic, cynical way of putting it. But you understand what I'm saying right there. It's like a friend. I'll use an example of a friend of mine, Raj Rajaratnam. Okay, he was an immigrant. He's from Sri Lanka. Came to this country.
Compared to Sri Lanka, yes, I would agree.
Well, yeah, but meaning he came here when he was young.
Yeah.
Highly educated, became one of the 5 greatest investors in the world. Long story short, was given the longest insider trading penalty in American history at the time in 2011 in what I believe now was a trial where the deck was completely stacked against him, which is not a popular take to have. Like, oh, this billionaire was actually innocent. I actually believe he was. And what's amazing is once you learn every single thing that the government did to him and what happened to him, he then ended up spending 7.5 years in prison before getting a home release. Wow. And you would think, the guy still got billions of dollars, right? You would think he would throw his middle fingers up to the sky and be like, fuck you, fuck the system, fuck all this stuff. And I'll never forget being in a meeting with him about 3 years ago, almost exactly, where he was talking about the justice system and things he wanted to improve in it and putting his money where his mouth is, by the way, which I think is cool. But very unexpectedly, he goes, he was starting to get like a little emotional. And he goes, you know what? This is the best country in the world. I'm so lucky to live here. I was so lucky to come here. I'm so lucky for my family to be here. There are things happening in the country that make me sad that we as a people need to come together and fix. But there is a reason people don't go in droves to China or Russia all the time or some of these other countries where they don't have some of the base freedoms that we do. And so if I can fix some of those problems to make sure we still have that 20 years from now, then I will put my money where my mouth is and do that. And that always stuck with me because this is a man who's traveled the entire world. He's been to every country. He used to own half the Sri Lankan stock exchange. He knows every continent like the back of his hand. He spent 2 months in Africa just for the fuck of it. And like when I hear someone like that having gone through the bullshit that he went through.
The worst of what America can offer,
that's where I get the averages. And I go, okay, healthcare fucked, education. We got some serious issues there. But like when you look at it overall, we're still better, but we should not rest on that laurels and assume that will be the case 10 years from now. And to your point, I think a lot of Americans, a lot of us, I've probably been guilty of it too in the past, sit there a little complacent, like, oh, we'll be fine. You know, it'll all work out. And then you don't look at history and see that every quote unquote empire has fallen.
Exactly. I agree with that. So
most people invest in tech, fitness, even diets, yet they ignore the very mattress they sleep on every night. That's a mistake, because quality sleep is the foundation for focus, energy, and recovery. And of course, that's where GhostBed comes in. The team behind GhostBed has been making mattresses for over 20 years, and they created the brand to give people a smarter way to upgrade their sleep. Every GhostBed mattress is built with premium materials and proven cooling technology to keep you comfortable all night long. And unlike mattresses that start sagging after a year or two, GhostBed mattresses are built to last, backed by a 20 to 25 year warranty. You also get a 101 night sleep trial to make sure it's the right fit, and fast free shipping so that most orders are going to arrive in 2 to 5 days. The value is undeniable too. GhostBed's mattresses cost up to 50% less than comparable brands. That's real quality without the inflated price tag. Right now, during GhostBed's Black Friday sale, you can get 25% off already reduced prices, plus a free massaging neck pillow with your mattress purchase. Just go to ghostbed.com/Julian, that link is in my description below, and use promo code Julian at checkout. Once again, that's ghostbed.com/Julian, link in description below, promo code Julian. Upgrade your sleep with GhostBed, the makers of the coolest beds in the world.
And again, like, I've heard, like I said, I've traveled a lot too. And I think where it gets to why he thinks that way versus why a German who's like average worker thinks that no, German is better, right? I would argue right now, hell no. But like I'm talking about like 10, 15 years ago, right? Like, again, I think the US gives you the opportunity to be that 1% if you wanted to. Well, not if you wanted to, but you have the capability. If you're a little bit sociopathic, if you're like, if you got all the right things, like a cocktail, then you can probably get there. Other countries cannot give you that. And I would argue the reason they can't give you that are partially our fault too in the US.
Well, how do you mean?
I mean, we overthrow and, the democratically elected leaders, we cause chaos in the world. Like, we are the number one terrorist of the world, no doubt about that. And the reason these countries are authoritarian is because they have to be. Because otherwise, they're going to go in a coup or a baton or something like that, up there. I'm not going to talk about what happened to certain people, but like Gaddafi or others, right? And they know. And that's something that no one talks about. Like, I'll give you a quick example of country of Georgia. Country of Georgia is the most peaceful. Like, and I can talk about it because I'm from, like I said, I was born in Georgia. I know what it's about. Look at its history and tell me if they ever tried to conquer anyone, really.
Ever tried to conquer somebody?
Yeah, conquer somebody. Yeah. No, they are like, they've been conquered a gazillion times. They won the wars. Like, they lost the wars. Like, I mean, these people have been through everything, really. It's fascinating, like how they are still alive, how they managed to like have the gene they had, like this coding, right? Like without mixing it with that. Like, it's incredible. But here's what happened just recently. So we are using Ukraine as a proxy, right? Like we are fighting through Ukraine, this war with Russia, so that we can weaken Russia and the usual warmonger shit that I'm so over with, like over and tired. Then we have the CIA working really hard to overthrow Georgian government, who says, I'm not going to get into war. It's not my war. Leave me alone. They threatened the Premier Minister of Georgia. And this is like EU and the US and Brits, right? Remember what happened to Fico? Fico got shot. Like, stay in line, bro, or you will be dead.
This is on record that they've done this?
He came out and says they threatened to kill me. They told me, remember what happened to Fico? This is a country focused on Georgia. Like, this government is focused on Georgia. They're like, we want to be great. We want to do all these good things, like, reforming education, all of that. What do you want, bro? Like, what do you want to cause a mess there? See, that's what we do. That's what we did in Latin America. Like, what? I killed Jose Ruldos or something? Like, we go in, we overthrow people. Like, what happened to Mossadegh? in Iran. Why kill a democratically elected leader that only wants to do good shit for his country? What's the deal?
Well, define good shit for his country.
Well, he wanted to nationalize stuff that meant that it would be good for the country, like oil and other things. And we didn't
nationalize it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
like so here's what we do. Let me explain something.
Yeah, that would be fascist. By definition.
So when CIA goes into the countries, they do something called like they want to do privatization of the assets, right? And they usually put it in the hands of very few people in the country, and the people that they can control. They did the same thing with Saakashvili in Georgia, like 2003 Rose Revolution. So they own everything, right? Well, how is that good for the country? When your biggest assets don't belong to people. How is that good for the country?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But the opposite doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily good either. Like so let me say, hold two thoughts at the same time. Imagine that.
Right.
I think the current Iranian regime is fucking insane.
Who brought them on?
And a disaster.
Who brought them on?
Hold on. I also think we shouldn't be in any way going out of our way to start a war and overthrow their government, which is just playing right into the hands of the propaganda that wouldn't then be propaganda because it'd be exactly what it looks like, that would make people say, well, maybe this isn't so bad. If you really believe that something is wrong, and I do, like the Iranian people don't like their government, I agree with them on that, they're going to have to overthrow it themselves or do it themselves.
Couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. But we don't allow that, though. Here's the thing. We don't even overthrow, per se, the dictatorial governments. Somehow the record is, sometimes we do, but if you look at the record of the overthrows that we know about, there are probably plenty we don't know about, but the ones that we know about, I mean, most of them are people who just said, I'm not going to be your puppet. I'm going to do something for my country. You might want to read a book called...
Economic Hitman.
Yes.
I saw where you're going with that.
Yeah, so like, but it's true though. He's absolutely right. And how do you think that goes down in international politics? And here's what people don't understand. Everything you do in other countries backfires and comes back to you. Like international policies are very much like a boomerang to our domestic policies, right? Yes. I'll explain something. So foreign countries, how do you think they lobby us into action? Like, tell me your opinion, and then we can take it from there. Like, why do you think that other countries do have an effect on our Congress or Senate?
I would imagine, if I'm being very broad with my answer, where it's economically feasible for us to continue our, ability to wield power economically and therefore just in general around the world, then we'll look at it, even if it's actually not going to help with that. We just convince ourselves it does.
So you're saying that, like, foreign countries lobby you to, help me understand, foreign countries lobby you to, like, keep the power overseas? Like that?
They lobby you in a way that makes you think, oh...
You have power over us and we'll do whatever you want? Is that what it is?
No. Because there's a lot of different countries that could be used as an example for this in different contexts. What I'm trying is, I want to be clear so that I'm not convoluting people out here. I'm saying that our bureaucracy is so high on its own supply that when another country, which is fucking every country around the world at some point asking for a favor.
Couldn't agree more.
Minus, probably like China and Russia. But like when another country comes to us asking for a favor, we look at it like fresh meat, like, ooh, what can we get out of that? And how can we actually like advance our economic interests around the world, even if that's not how it's going to end up going down. That's what I mean.
Right. Yeah. I agree. So I can tell you one example. For example, just recently, again, like I'm only using Georgia as an example because I know what's going on. It's like one of my forte, like my topics. I can use Russia. I can use Israel if you want. But Israel and Palestine was never my thing as a journalist, so I usually stay away, even though I have pretty strong opinions about that too. But recently, country of Georgia put up this like news article, and then they had like a, I think, short segment in the Imedi TV, I think, where they were saying that opposition party, which is Saakashvili, which was a puppet for the CIA, Saakashvili's national party, We can talk about that too. Like that guy is incredibly interesting. Like the guy who was involved in both Georgian Revolution, and then I would argue that he was a huge figure to what happened to Ukraine, like a big player in that too. Now he's in prison, by the way, for the crimes he did with the CIA or without them. I don't care. But anyway, so they put up an article how this party transfers money to a firm in the US that lobbies Joe Wilson like to do whatever they want. So put up, if you can, go to my Axe account and there's an article about it. So, and then in return...
Your X account is wild. I'll read through it. I need to get a shower afterwards. Oh, fuck.
So, like, I can tell you, I put this article up. I was like, they are so going to come after me after this. I don't care. So go to articles or just go down and it's called...
when did you post it?
It's way down. Go down.
Like September?
Yeah, I think so.
What was the article about?
I think it's called An Agent or like... it was about Joe Wilson and taking the money from this firm. Hold on. It's going to be there. There, Foreign Agent. Yeah, open that. Okay. So in here, I explain... in here, I explain how the whole thing went down, what was the firm that got the money, and then lobbied Joe Wilson to be like, pretty much like say lies like, Georgian government stopped building Trump Tower in Batumi. What? Never happened. Like, and the guy supports the people protesting in the streets against government. So people who want to overthrow the government, he supports them and what they do, which is like they broke everything in the city. They went in and tried to like ambush, if I correctly recall, they tried to break into presidential residence. And this is Joe Wilson, the same dude who said to January 6 people, how dare you? Oh, really, Joey? Because if it's against you that American people are coming for, then you don't get to protest and you don't get to break in. But if it's Georgia, yeah, dude, like go overthrow the government. Yeah. Like this is where they fail American people. These double standards that, yes, we fuel revolutions. Yes, we overthrow other leaders. Like, and then it backfires on us. And that's the tragedy of this country. We just don't get it. And I think the only president that actually got it was President Kennedy. And this is why he said, no, like it's just not going to happen this way anymore. Like we're not going to be, giving power to Israel. We're not going to be like overthrowing people overseas. We're just not going to do this shit anymore. And they killed him. As simple as that.
I do think it's very well established on record that basically everyone, ironically, with the exception of... oh my God, what the fuck was his name? The guy who took over after Stalin?
Oh, Khrushchev?
Yeah, Khrushchev.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone in the world, including in our own government, hated John F. Kennedy. And I do agree with you on many fronts that, John F. Kennedy was a normal human. He had his own flaws as a human. Right. But when it came to being a leader and an ideologue,
right,
he had a lot of amazing ideas that today would be very hard to put him in a political box with that, which I really like about him. Like he was very... there's no doubt about it that he was so like pro-American standards. Ironically, a scion of like a family that probably got their wealth through ill-gotten gains and everything. But like he found a way to kind of break away into his own lane and talk about crazy things like denuclearizing the world, or maybe we shouldn't just overthrow governments because we can.
Right.
And like these are just insane ideas,
Absolutely. And he was against the war. He was like, he talked, I think the first president, I don't know, we have to check. First and the only president who ever mentioned secret societies and how there is no place for secret societies in a free country and free world.
Yeah.
Like the only president.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think Khrushchev called him the best president the U.S. ever had or something like that.
That's not helping his case. But I understand that.
Because Khrushchev was crazy.
He did. I'm saying like from a propaganda perspective, doesn't help his case. But, Khrushchev and him had that famous red line that they actually talked on. and they actually had some sort of, I wouldn't call it I wouldn't call it a friendship, but they had an understanding with each other where their relationship, even though their politics were obviously different, they didn't have a hatred for each other, which, you know, that sometimes I wonder how much that contributed to us not blowing up the fucking world.
I agree. And we are there right now. And unfortunately, you know, I don't know. Like, see, this is very interesting. Okay, so have you ever asked, why are you like so hostile with Russians? Like, why? Like, you can see it as an American and think, okay, what's up with that? Like, why can't we be friends with Russians? Because they are very similar to us, white Christians. They want freedom. They understand freedom. They are very intelligent, like when it gets to, you know, development, all of that. Like, I mean, they were the ones who went to space. We faked the moon landing and all that. We did.
You think we did?
What if I told you a person who's very credible? Very credible. I can't name the person, but I can tell you behind the scenes, told me that we faked the moon landing, who was like involved in the process. The
anonymous sources thing?
I
can't go with that.
Yeah, you can't. Like, unfortunately, I would agree with you as a journalist.
Listen, I'm open-minded. Sometimes it does feel like we throw the baby out with the bathwater, and because we see some things as evil in our government, righteously so, we then have to say, you know what, all of it's a lie. There's not one thing we did. And for me, with the moon landing, my biggest argument against people saying we never did it, I'm not saying we definitely did, but every country in the world, including our closest allies, in many cases, would have had a reason to try to disprove that we did that, because it was such an achievement on the world stage that they would have been like, we want to do it first, and nobody did.
I would argue that they wouldn't give a fuck.
Why? Why wouldn't they give a fuck?
Because
going to the moon?
Because here's the thing. Like, Soviets, when they went in space, like, yeah, that was great. Like, that was really, really great. So, but why would achievement like that be a threat to them in any way, really? I mean, they can come back and say, so what? Good job. You landed on the moon. We went up in space the first dog, first human, like... It's
a big deal walking on another object that is not the Earth.
It is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
But I just don't see how it's a threat to them. Like, I just don't see it. To me, it would be great. Like,
it's a great piece of propaganda. It's an amazing piece of propaganda.
Could be. I don't know. Like, not. I guess I can't see it. I might be very subjective on that, because I wouldn't be able to. Like, I would be, okay, another great achievement for humankind. Like, this is how I would look at it. Not
that's how I would look at it too. But you understand that's not how the masses that get fed look at it.
Yes, it could be. It could be. It's just, it's very hard to believe what they are showing as far as like moon landing go, and then you listen to people who have dissected the case, and it's like, I don't know, but then I do trust the person that I talk to, so I don't know. Like, again, I don't know, but I think that this person is correct, so I don't know.
Well, that's the thing about that I always try to check myself with, because my brain, not just the moon landing, but with anything, my brain can go to, it's a lie about something immediately on pretty much everything, because sometimes I wonder if COVID was, obviously there were aspects of it that were a social experiment, but if part of the social experiment was, ooh, let's break people. Let's break them one way or the other. Either they defend everything and say it's all real, or they say nothing's real at all. You go from fucking Rachel Maddow to Candace Owens, and there's no in between. No in between, right? And so conspiracies are very real. There are many that have been proven. We have one in modern history right now that is the clearest as day thing I've ever seen in my life in Epstein. I just had a guy here who tracked all the phones to the fucking island. I mean, it's real.
It's real.
But then we have other ones that people will claim, and it's not real. And what it does is in my opinion, it creates noise. So that if you believe these 10 things, one of them is 100% real and it's bad. Yeah. The people that are in charge of that thing can go, oh, you're going to listen to them? Look at the other 9 things they believe.
Right, exactly.
And I try to be so careful with that. And what I like about my show, like in doing this is that I can have on given issues a perspective of you here, and then I can have my friend David Satter here, and you guys have some very different opinions. You both have something in common. You've both been on the ground over there and seen this stuff and understand what it is, and you just have wildly different perspectives. My job isn't to be like, David, you're 100% right, or Elizabeth, you're 100% right. My job is to push back on some things, let you talk on a lot of other stuff, and let everyone else out there kind of decide for themselves and land there. And I would hope that like the nuance gets infected where they go, you know, I don't agree with David on that. He made a terrible case. You know what, Elizabeth, her case on this was good. Her case on that was not good. Maybe, you know what I mean?
And that's exactly what every podcaster, journalist, talk show host should do. Like, let people decide if the case was made here. You know, I think that's the right way to do it. And I agree with you on conspiracy theory stuff. Like, it's crazy. I mean, the flat earth and this like stupid stuff. But I think that's exactly why it's there. I think you're right. You said something that I always say. Like, when I start investigating the case, I look at the case and I'm like, okay, what's noise and what's a real thing here, right? Like, that noise allows people to get like completely, I guess they become, you know, how do I say this? Not lost, kind of, but almost like delusional. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what certain forces, I would say, would want. Because if you're delusional, you're not, you know, cohesive. You can't make right decisions. You're absolutely all over the place. And, you know, there are still people who are on the opposite side of things too. Like, for example, there are people who believe that Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, right? To me, they are a special case. They should be, they should be a study case somewhere. Like, it's crazy. But
hey, bullets are magic. I don't know if you knew that. They are magic. Of course, yeah.
We've proven that with everything. We've proven that with Kennedy. We've proven that with Charlie Kirk. We've proven that with everybody, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just bothers me, like, how much misinformation there is, like, when it gets to the whole, like, Russia-Ukraine war and whole, in the Soviet Union itself, though. Like, that's another really, like, tough case.
Well, let's unpack that. What
Soviet
specifically?
Union?
Yeah. What do you think is, like, the main calling cards of, like, we're wrong about this?
Everything.
The whole thing. The whole thing. So they were fascist, not communist, even?
No.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they were
so
communists.
Someone was right.
Yeah, of course. Okay. I mean, yes, of course. Like, I'm talking about, they were communists. They were authoritarian. Okay. But I feel like most Americans see it as like communism is like one thing, right? I'm sure you see it too. If I said, like, what was communism? Like, explain to me what was communism in Soviet Union. Explain Soviet Union as an American to me. For like,
you want me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we already established it was where the government took control of all privatized business.
What government? What government?
The people in charge of the communist government.
Who?
The revolutionaries.
Okay.
Who took down the family.
They changed multiple times.
Right.
So, how many leaders of Communism Party and in general Soviet Union do you know? How many leaders? Let's count.
It started with the original revolutionaries. You had Lenin, you had Trotsky.
Yes.
And then you went to Stalin. Stalin started the pogroms and the Holodomor, as Andy would say.
Okay, so
and then you had him till 53. Khrushchev comes in 53. After Khrushchev, who the fuck was in there?
So you know more than most, okay?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's unpack that.
And then Gorbachev, obviously.
Okay, great. So let's unpack that. Who was Trotsky? Where did he come from? Like, let me break the Soviet myth for you real quick.
The Soviet myth.
Yeah.
All right, break it.
So, who was Trotsky? Where was he living before he became this amazing revolutionary who somehow took down the Tsar?
No, he ended up in Mexico.
Yes, he got shot. He got killed. So where was Trotsky? You want to know where he was?
He wasn't in Georgia, was he?
He was here in New York.
Oh, he's in New York.
Yes, he was here in New York. Isn't that shocking? You know what else?
Really.
You know what? Really? You know what else he was doing in New York? So Trotsky was in New York, and he was somehow able to have a chauffeur, like a private driver, refrigerator that was a luxury back in the day, and all this like very well off, like, style items for a person that wrote for a minuscule, weird newspaper once in a while that no one read. Like, Doesn't that strike you all?
So you're saying he's a communist who lived in nice opulence. Never heard of that before.
Yeah, well, Trotsky, actually, it's well documented. Read the book Wall Street and Bolshevik Revolution by Anthony Sutton. And another one that did a really good documentation, his name escapes me now, but he's a Swiss historian. So they pretty much track where these communists came from and overthrew Tsar. And it was bought, paid, and funded by the banks in the West. So isn't that funny?
Why would they do that?
Exactly. See, that's the question. I have my theories, but I don't know.
What would be your theory? So let's start with that. Okay. So this is not based in fact. This is Elizabeth's theory.
Yeah. So let's start with facts first, and then we can move to the theory, right? Okay. So Bolshevik Revolution and the Wall Street is a great book to start reading, and then I will remember the Swiss historian's name too. So this tracks Trotsky's. I mean, it's real fact that Trotsky was living in New York, and he was getting a salary, and he had a chauffeur and a driver, and he had a refrigerator and all of these items. And the question becomes where this guy had the money for all this stuff. Then he goes to conduct a revolution in Russia, and he goes through Canada. He gets caught in Nova Scotia. Again, a fact, okay? We have documentations for it. He gets caught in Nova Scotia with a ton of money. And they're like, where are you going? And then all of a sudden, Canadian authorities get a go-ahead so that he can pass, and they just let him go. So he ends up with Lenin. Who was Lenin, and where was he living? Do you remember? Because he was not
in 1917.
Yeah, before he became revolutionary, before he ever entered Russia. Where was he? Because he was not living in Russia. He was in Switzerland, right? So if I correct, he's in Switzerland. So they sent Lenin and Trotsky the same time to Russia with a ton of money. Why? Who are these people? Why do they have so much money? Like they are nobodies when you look at their background, right? And then they start investing this money in communism and Bolshevism, right? So they gather like this like-minded people. This is where later on Stalin joins them. Like he's a nobody in the beginning. Yeah. And that's another thing. Like most people don't even know who Stalin was. And these historians in the West that come out and blubber a bunch of shit. And I'm like, what ground do you have?
What kind of shit do they blubber?
Like a lot of shit about Stalin that is not even remotely right.
Like what?
I mean, do you want me to give you a breakdown of stuff? So, for example,
yeah, give me a breakdown because there's like I have no doubt.
Where was Stalin from?
Let me. He's from Georgia.
Yes.
Let me start with this. I have no doubt that at no point in history, when victors have emerged, will you ever see something where the story told is 100% correct? Doesn't exist. Like I study the American Revolution like the back of my hand.
Agree.
I'm very glad it happened. I'm very glad they did it. These guys were amazing. There's still 10% of things that sometimes do get written down, just not really talked about. Really, that it's like, that was a little fucked up. But like that's war.
Exactly.
So with Stalin, I have no doubt that there could be pieces where they're like, oh, Stalin made it rain in fucking Africa one day. And like, he didn't actually do that.
Yeah.
But we are talking about a guy who is documented. I remember talking about this with the Vile Eye when I had him in here. He's got a great YouTube channel and he studies this inside and out. We're talking about a guy who is documented to have murdered millions and millions of people. So I don't see any nuance with like, oh, well, was Stalin misunderstood? No, he was a midget who was just very upset about his height.
Did you listen to what I said? What did I say?
You said that there's been a lot of lies and propaganda about him. So I'm getting
Which is true.
Right.
So, and what else did I say? Do you know where Trotsky and Lenin lived? You said, I don't know. Where? I told you where. This is a fact. You can look it up. Why don't you look it up where he lived? Like it is a fact. So this is where like when you talk about noise comes in. Was Stalin a dictator? Did he kill people? Yeah, of course he did. But was he everything that West told you he was? Absolutely not.
In what ways?
Many ways. So let's start from here. Do you remember the time when Stalin was Uncle Joe? Really? He was not a murderous dictator then?
Yeah.
When we were helping him?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So what changed?
The war ended.
I see. War ended, and then we wanted all these territories that Soviets got, and we wanted to overthrow and dismantle Russia, and all of a sudden he became a bad guy, right?
Right.
Right. So
to be fair though, that was all propaganda. They never liked him behind the scenes. FDR fucking hated him.
So of course they did because
they all thought he was a problem.
Because he was absolutely against the globalist elites, and that's the story that no one tells you. So you don't have good guy and bad guy here. You have bad guys. Okay.
I understand that, Elizabeth, but this is where I got to push back on this. I'm not put aside like Western leaders being all good. They're not. We'll come back to that.
Right.
But like, if Jeffrey Dahmer were against the global elites, I'm not going to sit here and say, Jeffrey was misunderstood.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Like, if you are murdering millions of people,
that's not what I'm saying.
You're a scumbag.
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
So again, like millions of people, exactly how many million? Like millions of people. First of all, the numbers are not there to support it. That's one. The second, you have to understand the guy to talk about him. Like, for example, if you want to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, I personally can't talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. I know who he was, like in history, but I don't understand the guy. I can talk about him because I have not reviewed his case.
He was a bad guy.
Great. So was Stalin. No one argues that he was a bad guy. But the question is, when you have bad and the worst for humanity, like, what is your choice exactly? So let's talk about Stalin, shall we? What exactly do you know about Stalin? What exactly do you know?
I've already laid out some of it.
Okay, so where was he born? Georgia. Where?
I don't know in Georgia where.
Okay, how long he stayed there? What was his profession? Like, do you know anything about the guy? Like,
I don't remember. I have studied this in the past off the top of my head, like we're being quizzed in school. I don't remember what he did when he was growing up.
Exactly. So that's where I have problem. Like, no one really does. So I'm like, when I talk to people, they get so upset because they don't have the information. And I'm like, stop.
All right, we'll give it.
Let's give it. So Stalin grew up. By the way, he was not Russian in any shape and form. He was not even Slav. He was Georgian.
He's Georgian.
Yeah. So he was born in Dorey. And he wanted to be a priest. So he started he studied to become a priest in a seminary. So his mother was super religious, and she believed in like God, and she was like, crazy religious. She's still buried, by the way, in a pantheon, which is like only for holy people. So in Georgia. And this is the background that people do not know about Stalin. So he's in Georgia till the first marriage, and he has a first kid in Georgia, and then the wife dies because she was ill, and after the pregnancy it kind of got worse and she ended up dying. And this is where Stalin decides, you know what, there must be no God, because he was completely and utterly in love with this woman. And when this tragedy happens, he goes like, F this world. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, I gotta go and find something else for myself, because all these dreams and stuff that he had to become a priest, he wanted to become a priest. He was a poet, by the way. He has a whole book of poetry and all that shit written. And in that poetry, it's so funny. You read like the stuff like my little country that is not free or oppressed because of Russia or something like that. This is the guy who wrote this shit and then becomes the Russian, call it an emperor or dictator, whatever you want to call it, right? So all of this background is completely in trash. No one talks about it in the West. It's extremely important because it determines why he did things he did later on. Don't you think? Like everybody's, my childhood determines why I'm sitting here, right?
I think it's very important. Very just important. Like Hitler getting kicked out of art school.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Fuck those people.
Exactly.
Should have let him in. We would have saved ourselves.
Exactly. So then something very interesting happens. Like, this is what when we talk about communism, I always ask people, which communists, what era? It was all very different. And that's where they're like kind of something, there's like, they get so confused about it. What do you mean? Like communists? Okay, which ones? Because they were all different. Communism in Russia was all different according to who was in charge of them, right? So Lenin and Trotsky, both of them were traitors. They were bought and paid by globalists. That's why Russians hate Trotsky. By the way, his last name was not Trotsky. He was Bronstein. He was a Jewish descent. He bought the last name Trotsky to assimilate with, the Slavic names and Poland and Russia and all that. In reality, he was Jewish. So was Lenin. So both of them come in. They have Western money to conduct the revolution. They killed the Tsar. Do you know which Tsar they killed?
Nicholas
II. Yes. So
Anastasia might have lived.
No. She didn't. She didn't, unfortunately. Do you know how they did it? Like, it was so heartbreaking.
They killed him in a basement. They fucking mowed him down.
Yeah, it was so heartbreaking. And this is the...
And they were related to the British royal family.
Yes. See, like, it's very rare that someone knows that. Yeah, like, they were cousins. And they completely abandoned the king. They abandoned him. Yeah, I think they were in on it. That's why. So there was no reason to decline him and not accept the Russian royal family in England for, safe house. Like, the reason they declined him is because Nicholas started saying shit like, we need disarmament. We need world peace. That's him. Like, he believed in Renaissance and all that stuff. And you have this ginormous country like Russia with all these resources. You have a leader that's pro-peace and pro-prosperity and Renaissance and all that. And he's like, are you crazy? And they killed the guy. And brought the Bolshevik Revolution. And how we know, again, that it was funded by the Western elites, because there was a Red Cross mission going on, which, again, you can pull up a Red Cross mission if you can find it. Sutton details this in his book. Who was in this Red Cross mission? Why did it happen?
Wait, can you explain the Red Cross mission?
Right, yeah. So they said they needed... people have to understand the Bolsheviks were not that powerful force in the beginning, okay? No one cared for them. Like, they tried, multiple times to conduct a revolution. They failed. They could not conduct a revolution. And turns out they needed more money. So then Red Cross mission happens in Russia. And the Red Cross was like, when they suggested a mission, Red Cross was like, we don't need a mission in Russia. Like, why are we doing this again? And if you look at who participated in that Red Cross mission, like, it's all either lawyers, like financiers, bankers. And what they were trying to do is use Red Cross mission to funnel shitloads of money for the Bolsheviks so they could finish the revolution. That's what it was about.
None of this part surprises me.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, they brought communism on Russia, and then they lost the control. Exact same scenario like we always do. So, when they lost the control? When Stalin came in power. So Lenin and Trotsky till today is considered as a traitor in Russia. Ask yourself why. Why is he a traitor? Why not why not Stalin? Why not others? Why is Trotsky a traitor? Because he worked for the globalists. That's why. He came from New York, killed their Tsar, gave bunch of gold, by the way. What did communists do? Remember all this Russian gold that was shipped to Europe? Like, why? What, they didn't want money? It's stupid, right? So what happened is Lenin's last words are, anybody but Stalin. Why? See, that's where history goes like completely haywire, right? So anybody but Stalin. Why?
Because he wasn't in on their scheme.
Exactly. Yeah. He was a random dude from Georgia who had his own devils in the head, and he was not part of this one world order shit. And he looked at it, and I think I know exactly, like, I studied Stalin really well. And I had all the right documents for it because I'm from Georgia. I can read Russian, I can read Georgian, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, I think I know exactly when Stalin learned that this communism, like, he really believed in it, right? He himself. And you can actually determine the time period when he learns what this shit is about. And he realizes that, wait a second, Trotsky and Lenin, they are bought. Like, they are literally these puppets of the globalists. And this might, like, whatever is going on, it might not be real. Mm. So this is where he actively starts to kind of take the power, right? And he's like becoming more and more important figure. He does really good. He was a very good negotiator. So every time like there was like some hard stuff to negotiate, they would send him. This is how he advanced in the ranks. Like, who was he? Some Georgian from Dorey? Like, are you kidding me? Like, all of a sudden, he became a very important figure. And when he learned that this whole communism was not exactly what he thought, because again, this is why it's important to know a person's childhood. Entire poetry of his is about fairness, about like my country being oppressed. So all of a sudden, communists, what do they say? Everyone's what? Equal, equal, even though that's not true, right? Like, right. But that was the message. So this young guy who lives because he was upset because his first wife died and leaves the kid with his very religious, by the way, mom to raise. His name was Jacob, actually, not Jacob, but Jacob. And he moves to Russia, and all of this stuff that he always dreamed of, all of a sudden is presented to him as communism. Like communists can get you all this stuff, right? No royalty, no oppression, no nothing. And he ends up joining the Communist Party, but he ends up joining it because he believes in it. And then he learns that, hold on for a second, much bigger powers are at play here. And in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, there's no way to prove it, is that he was not okay with this one world thing that was going on, right? Like he was like very patriotic, which he was. So I call Stalin's patriotism as a toxic patriotism, like, because there is such a thing as toxic patriotism.
For sure.
Right? When you allow everything and everything is acceptable for your country to thrive. Like not everything is acceptable, right? So when you kind of cross every red line to protect your country, that was Stalin. And he was patriotic at first to Georgia and then to Russia, right? As like Soviet states, so Soviet Republic. So when he learned that, what did Stalin do exactly? Like when he came in power, what did he do? He started killing who? Imprisoning and then killing who? The same Bolsheviks that conducted the revolution. Why? Why? Ask yourself.
Because we in the West, to your point, look at communism as one thing.
Exactly.
Which is the equivalent of being in the East and looking at Trump and Obama as the same exact person. It makes no sense.
Thank you.
They're
That's
just a part of the same system. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've had so many people come up to me off camera in the past 6 months, it's making me like terrified. Just taking history and saying, oh, there's one thing wrong for it, therefore dump the whole thing out.
No.
That it's like it is actually bothering me. And I thought that's where you were going with him.
Oh,
I will agree with you. So I
Right.
apologize for jumping on you.
No, you're good.
I
And this is like,
I will agree with you that the way that things are, what's the word I'm looking for? Homogenized altogether is completely wrong. A lot of it is just propaganda, make it simple for people to digest. There are a lot of nuances here. So the way you just laid out that case is actually very fair in that it's not saying like, hey, these guys aren't evil and these guys aren't evil. No, they all suck, but like here's how it happened.
Exactly.
I understand that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's what like is lost on history. And then what contributed to what you said, that every American's like head is filled with like communism is just one thing and so on, is the propaganda that followed of the globalist network against Stalin and all that, because now like two bad guys are fighting for the power, right? So he's a toxic patriot who's like in his head, well, what is this globalist shit going on here, right? Like, am I gonna get anything out of this? Like, is Russia gonna get anything? No. What Russia was supposed to do is got dismantled into parts, right? Like, how would you play Russia in this? Like one world order, like where Russia fits? Nowhere, because it's super complex geopolitically. It has Muslims, it has Christians, it has multiple diversities. Like when it gets to genome and cultures and how they understand themselves. This is why Chechnya is a bomb in Russia, right? And we're not going to go into it because that's a whole another episode. Like
Chechnya is a what?
Bomb.
Is a bomb?
Bomb. Ready to explode.
Oh, okay.
Like not anymore because Putin knew how to deal with it, but it was a bomb and it did explode, right? Like, when Chechen war, the whole thing happened, because it's a Muslim country inside Russia, with all these Christians and above that different cultures in it, right? So Putin dealt with it brilliantly. But again, it's still a threat, right? It's still very different from everything. It's almost like having, why, not to divert from subject real quick, but why are we so afraid of immigration? It's the same principle. Now you have Muslims in UK praying in entire streets, and UK people are coming out and saying like, whoa, what just happened here? What is going on? Well, guess what? That is a constant reality for Russians when it gets to Chechens, right? And Russia figured out how to make friends between Christians and Muslims in a way that both Chechen soldiers right now and Russian soldiers are fighting for Russia. They are not fighting for, Christianity or Muslim or whatever. They are fighting for their land, which is Russia. And they are equally putting everything they've got into it, right? And they somehow figured this out, that these like differences are no longer quite that distinct anymore. That was, again, Putin. But before that, Chechnya was a huge problem. And so was many other different nationalities, including Georgia, by the way. We were part of Russia as well. So you're dealing with this complex Soviet Union entity. And how is it going to fit in your one world order? And Stalin could see that not only it's not going to fit, they're going to oust me, dismantle Russia, like what they did with Ukraine. By the way, Trotsky was the guy who was saying, you know what? Ukrainians have the right for self-determination. Like, this was way before, like, anything, right? That's where this talk started. And then all of a sudden, like, there was propaganda against Georgians too. Like, hey, you're this ancient country. Why are you okay with Russians, like being under Russians? You should have the ambitions to get out, right? What does that mean? You're dismantling Russia from the inside, right? Stalin could see that. And he was like, no, bro, this is not going to work, because that's going to result in me getting ousted as well. And all of this that I'm building here. So this is, I think, where the whole thing went down, like when the Lenins and Stalins, like, clash started, and Lenin didn't want Stalin to take over. He did it anyway. And then what did he do? Julian, do you remember? Like, there's a word in Georgian and Russian history, we call it intelligentsia. He started killing who? The elites. Why?
Because he thought they were in on it.
Thank you. That was it. So yeah, the entire like history is told in such like ugly way, when there's like actual facts that you can, look at and tell it in the right way. Now, next thing about Stalin is Stalin's second hand was Beria. That was actually Georgian too. That was Beria gets no limelight whatsoever, even though he was the true psychopath of the regime. Okay, Beria was a psychopath. Like, he was. I think Stalin's motivation was toxic patriotism. He was right in many things that he did. He was wrong in many things, but Beria was a complete psychopath. So, and again, like, take the war. So World War II happens, and that's another weird thing that I could never understand. So who really won that war? You are educated enough to know this. Like, I can see in our conversation that you know the facts.
Meaning, like, who was most responsible for the war coming to an end? Russia threw the most bodies at it. There's no doubt about that. I think the way I've always looked at it is Russia threw the bodies, through the military, Britain through the intelligence, and the United States through the push coming into it. I think
so.
Would
it be fair to say that the biggest sacrifice was made on the Russian part?
By mathematical numbers, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like, that's everything. Like, what Russia didn't throw the intelligence part, or like they just left out on that? No, they did.
No, they did. Yeah. I'm saying who had the most weight of like pulling off crazy shit for each of those.
Exactly.
That's how I describe it. It doesn't mean all three didn't play a role. The United States threw a lot of bodies at the problem too.
Actually, not comparable. Let me explain something.
Not to Russia, but they hold on. Let's not do this.
Okay.
Russia lost way more people. They lost fucking, I don't even remember the number, at Stalingrad alone. It was significant.
I'll tell you what the numbers are.
It was civilians. It was the whole bit.
I'll tell you what the numbers are.
They say, therefore, the United States lost like 1 million people.
No, not million. It's actually very, very simple.
Whatever it was, let's pull it up.
I can tell you 27 million. I can tell you 27 million on Russian part, 200,000 on the U.S. part. I can break this down for you, right?
What were the United States deaths in World War II? You might be right. But that's what I'm saying. When we start getting in the game of like discrediting all of it, 407,000, which I'll call that close enough.
Yes.
For the same thing.
So exactly, like, 27 million, right?
But that's what I'm saying. Yes, Russia threw significantly more bodies at the problem, but like we still took losses too. Just like I don't think it's acceptable to say like, oh, just 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. How about the 3 million Poles? How about the fucking million Romanis?
That's what I'm saying.
That's how I look at
it. Exactly. I also So again, but we remember how we started this podcast compared to what, right? So would it be fair if we were in the same deal right now and let's say I got everything and you got only 10% and then a very simple thing. Let's say we invented something and I came up with 70% of it and you came up with the rest and you came out and said, well, I'm the winner. Like how? I'm the inventor. No, I'm the inventor. You're the helper. Right? So that's how it is. Now you have to, this is what people don't understand. It does matter. It matters because when Russians woke up one day, there was no man walking in the street anymore. 27 million they've lost. And what's even worse is that when this war is going on, guess what the elites in the US are doing? Funding Hitler. Yes. And this is a fact.
When the war was going on.
Yes, when the war was going on.
We know about before the war.
No.
But when the war was going on,
I'll tell you
that.
Do you want even shocking thing? When the US got into war, they continued funding Hitler.
How so?
Union Bank, if we had...
Joe will be back in a minute. I'll
pull
it up.
Union Bank. Look up Union Bank and Prescott Bush. They continued funding Hitler and the FBI had to, actually the government issued, seized the assets of the bank enemy of the,
Yes. I know about that.
Yeah. So now think about this for a second. So for the Russians at Soviet Union, who gave up 27 million men, and then there is this propaganda somehow equalizing the effort here, whether it's Brits, who, by the way, Churchill says, it's his words, I can't quote exact quote, but he said something like, let the Russians do the groundwork, let them do the war. Like, okay, so we did do the war, right? Like meaning Georgia, Russia, and all these people. My great-grandfather died in that war. So like I said, it's not the same. I'm sorry, but it's not the same. If anyone really fought that war, was Soviet Union, and they lost everything for it. Everything for it. Yes, Britain helped. Yes, Allied forces helped. U.S. elites, not the U.S. people. By the way, U.S. people were the most honorable in this war, not the elites. Elites funded Hitler up until the very end, until the the government had to seize their assets. Like, what is that exactly? What kind of, you know what I mean?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Yes, Prescott Bush was a scumbag.
Yes.
And yes, there are
somehow
people like him that existed.
Somehow his son became a president.
Yes, somehow. And somehow the grandson became the president. Yes, Alan Dulles was a scumbag who spent the entire war in Bern, Switzerland. Very interesting address to have during the war. Yes, there are people like that were that case. But when we start saying and generalizing, it's the same sin as when people generalize all Russians or something, and throw it in with Putin.
Who's generalizing?
Hold on. Let me make this point.
Okay.
When you generalize that,
right,
and you therefore say the entire United States, you are insinuating, but hold on, when you say the elites, all of them, they were funding Hitler. They were funding Hitler the whole time. 99.99% of them in the United States were not. Prescott Bush should have been put on trial for treason, found guilty by a jury of his peers, and executed. I don't even believe in the death penalty, but I'd make an exception right there.
I agree.
That is one guy.
No, it's not one guy.
There were a handful of other people.
Yes.
But to then make that insinuation that therefore the entire United States government, which is what that argument gets to, it's like a slippery slope. Therefore, they all supported it. I know that's not what you said, but you have to understand when you say the elites, you said something like the elites, they were all funding Hitler.
No.
That's not the case.
Okay, so Davidson, Bush, and all these people are the same elites that drive the government and drove the government later. How do you think? You asked the great question. Like, okay, so his son and grandson became president. How exactly? If it's just one guy and all the other ones are so innocent, like they are stupid or something? Like, how exactly did Bush do that? Explain to me. Who was Atchison? Who was Alan Dulles? Who was Avril Harriman? Who was a magnet, by the way? You know who else funded Hitler? Avril Harriman. Because he was a partner with Bush. So explain to me, if he was just one guy, how did he get away with not going to prison and getting executed. Because I'll tell you something right now. If I was that one guy and I secretly funded Hitler while my country, I would, like, they would slit my throat. Like rest of them. Why didn't they do that? How
Because he's a powerful guy in a powerful position.
Just one guy is the powerful guy and rest of them are not?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a handful of them that do that. And then they find their way into powerful positions and they're scum.
And then we have to argue how many then. And you can't argue exactly what number there is, Julian, because you don't know. And neither do I. But what I know is that an entity that gets away while my country is in the war, gets away with funding Hitler, is a very damn powerful force and is protected by very, very many people on top. Because otherwise, it cannot do what it does and get away and then have a descendant, 2 of them, as the president of the United States.
The descendants is a major, major issue. And I completely agree with that.
Yes.
I think it is far more likely that when you have a victory like that with the Allied forces in this way, and something like Hitler was stopped, Japan was stopped too. You just go through years and years of everyone losing a lot of people, this insane war, everyone's on edge around the world, and now it's over. Mm-hmm. What you don't want is nuance in any way.
Exactly.
You want to make sure that, and this is the point I'm really trying to make.
Right.
You want to make sure that 100% of the narrative is on your side, which is exactly what I was saying 15 minutes ago. When you look at any war, there is always, for the victors, if they were in the right overall, there is always that 10% where they did some bad shit. When you win, that gets covered up. I am not saying that's right, by the way. I think it's completely wrong that Prescott Bush was allowed to continue being Prescott Bush. I think it's wrong that his fucking sperm.
But you just said the plot, right? So how are you overthrowing the head, like the president of the United States, without having a backup plan? So it's not just one guy. You just mentioned the plot. And Smedley Butler named a ton of them. And the names were like not released. Why? So who made that decision? You're talking about banking industry. Who else made that decision? So no, I'm sorry, it was not just the one guy. Because one guy didn't approach a freaking general to say, why don't we overthrow Roosevelt tomorrow and make this a Nazi dictatorship? Okay, he's a mental case. He's going to end up in hospital if that's one guy. He's not a one guy. And that's what thinking that way got us here. Now we are under these guys. You know this better than I do because you've been in the US. You grew up in the US, way longer than I have. So now we are under this one guy, all this like shadowy government, and we can't do shit about it. Because the first time they did something like that, we said, oh, it's just a one guy. Don't pay attention to it. It was not a one guy. And that's my beef.
It is absolutely, in the context of the situation, a handful of people. Like I was saying, it's not just one guy.
It's actually multiple families.
But I'm saying when you generalize it to be like, therefore the entire government was supporting.
No, I said, hold up.
You said the elites. I'm sorry.
Yes,
elites. When you say all the elites were supporting Hitler, they weren't. There were some that were.
I didn't say all the elites. We can go back. But I said the elites, which is true. Then the government, by the way, I never count government in the elite. So let's make that distinction, okay? So to me, government is absolutely, completely different player here. Really, you would think that Donald Trump is part of the elites? I would argue he's not. Like who's really, like, you can't count the government into the elites. Government is manipulated by the elites. We would agree on that. But would you say that Donald Trump is part of the elites? No, right? That's why we voted for him. We got him in the office to clean the house. And so that this would not happen. So let's make that differentiation. We can't just say elites. Okay, that's another thing that kills me. Elites. Okay, who? I can name my sources and I can tell you the investigations I've done. Davidson's, for example, that never get mentioned. Truby Davidson that literally single-handedly created the Navy Reserve that America didn't have. What the heck was Truby Davidson's job to do so? It was not. But he made his job because he needed a control over military. It's a whole rabbit hole that, we can go down to, but we can't just say, much to your point, just the elites. No. The government is a different entity. The bankers are different. And they are, by the way, some of them are not even American. Okay, let's start from here. So when I say that the elite forces, which is true, multiple, not just one, funded Hitler, again, true. They did. So then, now put yourself for a second in Russian shoes. For a second. You lost 27 million men against this madman. And then you find out, which they know, by the way, that the US elites, which are bankers and the people who then drive the government and all this machine, funded this madman that killed 27 million of your people. Like, sit on that for a second, how that feels. And then...
You'd be pissed.
You would be pissed.
I think that the same...
But
Elizabeth, I think the same things that have happened with propagandizing us to believe 100% truth and stuff that is not,
right,
is now being thrown completely in the opposite direction, carefully and deliberately, to turn us in on ourselves, to assume that now I have a lot of problems with like the elite class, obviously.
Right.
I try to look at things on a case-by-case basis. So when I hear generalizations on things that make huge claims that can, whether or not it's your intention or not, but that can be taken as like, therefore, like the elites just in general, we're all supporting Hitler.
I never said all were supporting Hitler. Like we talked about this.
I understand that. But you said like the line was the elites were supporting Hitler. Are we going to talk about that? Like that was the line.
Right.
And I don't like being a literalist. I don't like picking apart words and whatever. But we're living in a world now where people are suddenly like saying things like, you know what, actually, Hitler wasn't the bad guy in World War II. It was really Churchill. It's like, dude. I'm not saying Winston Churchill was a perfect guy. Far from it. We could certainly go down that.
We can agree.
But like we can't. It sometimes feels like we are in a vortex now post-COVID to believe the polar opposite on everything, and it really.
Why is that the polar opposite? I don't understand.
What do you mean? Why is that? So one narrative is that Hitler was the worst thing ever. He was the only worst thing ever right there. Everyone had to kill everything in sight.
I don't know where you get these narratives. That's not my narrative.
No, hold on. I'm saying the general public narrative right now.
Okay.
This is not your narrative.
Okay.
I'm saying this is what the narrative has been in public. Right. The world had to stop him and all that, and anything that happened on the way there, or once we had to get to that point, or once we had to do it, was absolutely fine.
Right.
That was one narrative.
Right.
That's not 100% right.
I don't agree with that.
Right? He was a very bad guy. That part's right. But like there were a lot of other things that went into it. By the way, including, I just want to lay out this so that we can people can understand where I'm coming from. The other narrative that's now forming is literally the opposite of that. Right. And it's literally saying, you know, maybe he had a point. And it's like, dude, I don't know why we can't hold multiple thoughts at the same time. So I get really, and I'll admit it, and I'm sure people are going to let me know in the comments, and that's absolutely fine. That's why we do this show. We cover all perspectives here. But like, I get really, really concerned about the psyop that I think is happening in the other direction now. We've already seen a psyop in one direction, but now it is the equal but opposite reaction happening in the other direction where nothing we've ever done is right. Nothing. There's nothing in America
that is not true.
I know that you don't think that's true, but I'm saying that's what a lot of people now think is true, and it concerns me deeply.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people think that at all, actually. I think...
You don't talk to people.
Really?
I do, you don't talk to people then.
I do. Like,
if I told you some of the things people come and tell me off the street these days, I'm like
what? Tell me something. Like, because I think that's absolute nonsense.
What I just told you is a really common one. I'll get, actually, like dead seriously, people will walk up to me. Winston Churchill was actually the bad guy in World War II. Hitler wasn't as bad as we've been told.
Okay, that's like flat Earth, okay?
No, that's what I think, but I'm saying this is now something I hear a lot, Elizabeth.
No. So again, like...
But I do. I hear it from people that I would describe as normal.
Again,
I've talked about it with Deep.
I believe that they're again, like, conspiracies are wild, but again, there's a reason to be. Like there's a reason why people are so, like, everything is a conspiracy. Everything must be opposite because it's easy. Because it's easy when you don't have to break down the case. You can just, well, good guy, bad guy. Easy, right? Good guy, bad guy. Well, I was wrong. Okay, well, then somebody has to be a bad guy. Why don't we make the Churchill bad guy? Like, it's easy. It's easy to hold that thought. It's very complicated when say, actually, let me explain. The United States and its people were always the good guys, but they had this very, very rotten aspect of things, which is like banking and elite forces and all of these people that are manipulating many people in the United States. See, when you explain that, like now you don't have like black and white. You just have people who are doing their shit. Like, again, take Roosevelt. I don't blame Roosevelt on a lot of things, like in World War II. Like we just talked about what Atchison did without him knowing, what caused us the Pearl Harbor, right? So there are elements which we know. Shadow government, which is today, like what happened with Charlie Kirk. If there's no shadow government, why do you not know what happened to Charlie? Really? There is, and there always was. So ignoring that is not going to help you. So unfortunately, they are in the US and Britain. Where would you be? Where would you be if you were a guy who's like money hungry and wanted to conquer the world? Like, which country would you choose to do it from? The United States of America. So that's what I'm trying to tell you since I got here. Like, it's not that US people are... Actually, there are some fault of ours as well, because we allow this in the US, right? Like we don't know, we stay ignorant enough, or what you said, we go crazy on conspiracy theories and we cannot tell the difference and we cannot tell what's real, what's not. That's on us. Like no one stopped you from doing research. No one stopped you from being smart about these things, right? So yeah, of course, there's a responsibility. Just like in Nazi Germany, Germans were responsible for allowing Hitler to what he did. What, like Hitler just, overrated like millions of people? No, they did what they did too. So let's be real in the US and take the responsibility we owe to the world, which is we have the deep state that goes and operates without our presidents even knowing about it. When we start there, then everything is much clearer, and the roles of what's happening in this country are already defined, So that's what I'm saying. And by not recognizing them and just saying, oh, well, that's, just one or two people and then nothing, we should not pay attention.
If I misstate that, let me be very clear. I don't think we should not pay attention to that. I just don't want to generalize the whole thing because that is the same way that narratives start where they say like, you could insert blank here about Russia and the Russian people or whatever.
Right,
it's no different.
Exactly.
I see it both ways.
Which, again, like we agree on that. So that's what I'm trying to say. And the issue should be upfront and saying this is exactly what we need to think about. So why did I say, how would you feel as a Russian, right? Like, because they are not stupid. They know this shit, right? They know, they understand what's going on. And now despite that, by the way, despite all that, what happened? Gorbachev agreed to the terms. Russians came to the table. They tried to shake our hand. What did we do? We broke every agreement on the way. Not every, but many agreements.
We did break agreements.
Yeah. Why? And not just any agreement, dude. Something that would cause like catastrophic results. Why? Question is why? Did we need Ukraine? No, we didn't. CIA director himself said strategically it's not important to us. Really? Then why are you meddling there? Why do we have a recording? Huh?
That's a lie. That's not what he thinks at all.
Yeah, he did. There was a memo.
No. I'm saying he said that, but I'm saying that's a lie. Like, that's not what he actually thinks.
No, of course. Like, well, I don't know why he said it. I honestly think that he understands that strategically it's not important for him. This is before war. You have to keep in mind, like, this is where he was an ambassador,
right?
But
even in that's what I'm saying. It's always been important to them. Look at where it is. Like, why would the U.S., if you're looking at it from the worst case scenario too, why would they not want, and I don't agree with this, but why would they not want that as a proxy country effectively? Look at where it's located. It's on the sea.
So see, that's the problem. That's the thing. Why would they want it? Like, it's not in our best interest for American people. For the elites, yeah. So you're thinking like...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I agree with that. Yeah, of course, because their objective is war and conflict and destabilize. Yeah, but put their objective... I don't give a fuck about them. Let's just forget them for a second. American people, who we give a fuck about, and what this country should be. How is in our best interest what happens in Ukraine, and if we have forces there or not? Let me tell you, it's not in our interest. Our interest to make friends with Russia. Imagine for a second that we are on good terms with Russia. You know how many things that can help us with? You have Russia in your orbit means that you can, because Russia is not a superpower like you, right? So you're the big dog. You can influence Russia. And through Russia, you can influence the entire hemisphere on the other side. Why not have Russia as a friend?
When you put it like that, it's
very
like
simple.
Put aside personal. Look pre-war. Let's actually start there.
Pre-war.
Let's look pre-war before there was actually, all kinds of bodies dropping on both sides and all that, and funding going on and all that. You don't have to like Putin. I fully understand that, and I've covered that many times before. But like, if you're looking at it strictly strategically and saying, well, we're not going to control who's in charge of their country, but we can. Let's talk about it like a parasite. You can fucking use them for your own needs and allow them to exist in their way. I see where people would make that argument. Yeah.
So you're saying, let's use them for our good, right? How are you using them for our own good? How are you doing that right now with wars? You're not.
You're not.
Exactly. Yeah. That's my point. Yeah. So why don't we make friends with them? We know they can't challenge us in any shape and form.
It's just the old kid on the schoolyard thing. Yeah, you're so dug in. You're so dug in already that you're like, you can't say now, you know what, fuck it.
Actually, you can. Because,
you could, but like psychologically, the human condition doesn't let you do that.
I don't know if I agree with that, to be honest. Like, I don't know, because here's the thing. It happened before a million times. We did this with freaking Noriega. We did this with everybody. Why can't we do it with Russians? Because it's not in best interest of the, again, elite forces and people who control this country to have peace. Because if you are friends with Russia, you have what? You have peace.
Yeah.
And that's unacceptable. It comes down to that only, period.
I think you have a point there. I think that when you look at blatantly announcing like, oh, BlackRock's going to rebuild Ukraine after this war is over. When you look at the fact that there were multiple opportunities to go to the table and negotiate here, and I agree with you. Zelensky's been outed as kind of a moron.
Yeah.
Like the best part is when he's coming and telling us what to do, and it's like, buddy, we're paying you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I'm all for a country being able to make their own decisions and stuff like that. But when I'm funding your entire thing, which I don't agree with, but we've done it.
Shit on me.
That's what I'm saying.
You kidding?
We are making the call at that table because we have personally, I don't agree with any of it. But I'm saying once you're in that situation, don't sit here and tell me I don't have a vote. I'm the chair of the board.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
But they allowed Zelensky. Who allowed that behavior, Julian? They allowed Zelensky. They played this puppet so well. They allowed him to think that he's actually Winston Churchill. And when you do that, like, it's true, right? And when you do that, and you allow that person to actually think that, he's going to start behaving like Winston Churchill. And then you get what you got, right? Yeah. And then Trump came in and slapped him in the face and said, boy, you really need to quit thinking like you're Winston Churchill, because let me put perspectives in place right now. You're a nobody. And he was so humiliated. Remember the meeting? When Trump and J.D. Vance just rained down on him?
That was prime time TV. Yeah.
Just crazy. But he kind of woke him up. And all of a sudden, did you see the change in behavior all of a sudden? Mm-hmm. Now he's like, everybody's about, Trump. And these are the same guys who afforded Trump before he got into the office, like Mark Rutte. Like Mark Rutte, who hated Trump with everything he had. And all of a sudden, Trump is the daddy now, the big daddy, right? Like, it's pathetic. It's so, like, you want to throw up when you look at these people, you know?
Yeah. But it's not, There's an old line Joe Rogan had that I think is so good, and it's so true. He's like, when you look at even being president, though, the people that come in and meet with you, They were there before you got there. They're going to be there after you leave, and you both fucking know it.
Exactly.
And so you wonder, like, yeah, I have seen some of that. And what you're talking about with, like, people having to change up their vibe with Trump on certain things related to that war and stuff like that. I think that's a positive. But also, why is it still going on, too?
Right.
I mean, I've had people in here who were on the ground there, and they're like, dude, they're dropping bodies left and right on both sides, fighting over 14 yards for 2 weeks.
Right. Why it's still going on is actually a good question. I think I have my theories of why it's going on.
What's your theory?
You have to imagine yourself in Putin's place right now. Can you do that? Are you able to? You know, McNamara said that once. Like, the biggest thing about being a politician, and I think he repeated in Fog of War, a documentary that everyone should watch. He said you have to be able to put yourself under, he said, under their skin. Like, you have to become them, right? That's what he's saying. Well, think about Putin and his world. He comes in power, okay? And talking about that dark spot in America that tries to control the world, right? So these guys made Russia lose territories they made a promise. Hey, bring down the wall. Let's rearrange this shit, right? Let's figure out what's going on here. So these guys pretty much helped Soviet Union like be no more, okay? Like, in a way. It was not their achievements when Soviets got there. It was all Soviets by themselves. They imploded from the inside, but they helped the process of Berlin Wall and all that. And Bush came in and did what he did. But here's an interesting thing. What did they do right after that Berlin Wall came down? I can tell you what they did. They sent operatives, whether it's CIA and MI6 and others, in country of Georgia, Ukraine, and all these countries that belonged to Russia, and they started arming groups that eventually would break off Georgia, Ukraine, and other places from Russia. So now, like, you're Putin, remember? I'm an American, you're Putin. So you answer me as Putin, okay? So you lived Yeltsin years, where your president was like a funny puppet to Bill Clinton, right? When he was begging on the phone to Bill Clinton not to bomb Serbia, right? So you watched all that. You were at the KGB, you watched all that. And you have this anger in you. Like, how come a president of Russia, like a huge superpower, beg someone else not to bomb Slavs? Like, what is that, by the way, right? So then you had to take this anger when you came in power as a president. You have to take this anger and put it in a box. And you went over to Bush, you said, let's be friends. And you meant it, by the way. You even offered, why don't Russia become part of NATO? What does that mean? That means like full-on friendship zone here. Like, and Bill Clinton said, we've got a great idea. And next day he comes in, actually, I've talked to people, they said no.
Right.
Why? So he made multiple attempts to be friends with the Americans with there was no extra, what's the catch, right? Like, let's be friends, dude. What is the deal? And they said, no, we don't want you as a friend. I'll tell you even better. Michael Hayden, the psychopath who was in charge of NSA and then CIA. I mean, can you imagine how many butts you gotta kiss to be like in charge of both? Like, one agency is big enough. And he comes out and says, well, we didn't care what Russia thought. We didn't give a fuck. Like, he didn't say fuck, but we didn't care. He said, really? You didn't care that Russia was telling you that, hey, do not jeopardize my national security? Why do you care when England says that? England was the biggest enemy we ever had historically. Why do you care when England says that? Why accept, like, Israel, England, and not Russia in friendship? What's up with that? Like, think for a second.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think that when you look at the foreign policy of the United States towards Russia just on a diplomatic level since the fall of the Soviet Union, I don't think there have been a lot of good strokes at all. I will agree with that 100%. I think that you have forced them into a box such that even if you get people who maybe are objectively bad people, maybe they do some bad shit to their people, you are giving them a case to take their foreign policy actions that they do. And it is a great point that you make to put yourself, quote unquote, under the skin of a leader, particularly someone that you don't think is good. And, you know, objectively,
I don't think he's bad, actually. I know you don't,
Putin's
but
bad?
no, not at all.
I've had someone sit across from me who's had all kinds of friends executed by that guy.
Yeah,
so it's very hard for me to see that.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about, and I don't think so. So I grew up hating Putin, unfortunately. I admit that I was wrong. I grew up in country of Georgia, right? Like, I mean, as a kid. So, and where CIA puppet was the president. So they taught me to hate him. So I hated him because I was not a journalist. I didn't have the tools I have today. So I hated the guy with everything I had. And then when I became a journalist and I started actually reading stuff and actually understanding, putting myself into his skin, I realized that not only this guy is not a bad dude, he's also a really effing good leader of Russia.
Why do you say that? Why? Let's start with the first part.
Okay.
Why is he not?
1991. Where is Russia?
1991.
Yeah. What's happening?
Lost, broken. Communism fell.
Thank you. All of that. So then, Russian people are looking for food in freaking dumpsters. Mm-hmm. Chechnya is a growing problem. It's about to explode, which it did, by the way. So, and all of a sudden, you have pathetic president like Yeltsin, and then Putin comes in power. And not only he takes the country out of the gutter, but he actually gives Russian people pride to be a superpower again. Argue that fact with me. Like, argue that. That did not happen? Russia is not a third. Yeah. Who else did this? I mean, there was no one else.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. So would you argue that most Russians like Putin? Like, I was there. I visited Russia. I know that majority of Russians support him. Majority of Russians. Is that a fact or not? You say. You tell me.
I would actually believe that's a fact.
Good.
I think there's been some polls that are conducted that are like clearly skewed, but
which
if you're
ones?
saying if you're saying when they're like, oh, 95% of people support him, that's not the case. Yeah, of course not.
But there is never a case.
Do I believe it when the data comes out like 60%?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's agree on basics, okay? Mm-hmm. Putin reformed Russia into another superpower, which it was not, by the way, in 1990. It was a mess. It was not superpower.
It was a mess.
Yeah. So he brought the status of superpower back. He reformed the entire army. That was like nothing in 1990. They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
He reformed the country completely, and his people like him. Why is he a bad leader? What makes him a bad leader?
Where do you want me to start?
No, I asked you, like, what kind of leader is a good leader when he reforms the country and your people like him?
I think part of being a good leader is also knowing that the system, that you are not bigger than the system. And this is a guy who's repeatedly changed the Constitution to be able to stay in power of the country into perpetuity. It's also a guy that, and like I say this knowing full well that my country and many countries around the world have done this stuff too. So let me be very clear on that. But he's a guy who came to power blowing up his own apartment buildings in Russia.
That was not a false flag. I'm sorry. If you're talking about the Chechen War, it was not a false flag. I do
believe it was. I think.
I mean, it was actually, I agree. It was a false flag. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Yeah. It was a false flag, not Vladimir Putin's false flag. If you know the case, which I do, I can send you an article about it.
All right. So how do you think, who else would have done that? Vladimir Putin. Because David Satter was the guy on that. Alexander Litvinenko was the other guy, and Putin killed him.
I know Alexander. I know who he was.
He killed him outside of his country, poisoned the guy.
Yes, I actually believe that he did kill Litvinenko.
And
I believe
that's what I'm saying. So, why would he kill the guy who Litvinenko was a former FSB?
Yes.
Spy who was so there were two guys who were blowing the whistle on the apartments. One of them is my friend David Satter, who sat here with me 2 times before. He was in the West because he's an American. Right. The other one was Alexander Litvinenko, who was FSB internal. Right. Alexander Litvinenko was executed, I think it was in London.
I haven't looked at that
yes,
case in a
while.
Yes, it
was in London. He was poisoned with polonium.
By FSB agents that is on Vladimir Putin's orders to do that.
Right.
The case that
zero argument with that. Zero.
David runs through the entire case, and he's written like 8 books. I forget the name of this one, but there's one of his books. We can pull it up. David Satter, apartment bombings book. Yeah. He makes the full case. He's laid it out with me on episode 92. Yeah, you know how many times
I've heard it on the American propagandist radio too?
I have no doubt. Listen, hold on, Elizabeth. I have no doubt that there is propaganda against Putin. Yes. I have zero doubt about that. I know that if they could blame Putin for someone farting in another country,
I'll make it super easy for you. Let's say he did. Like I disagree, and I'll send you a great work that goes into detail to who did it and how. But let's say I'll make it super easy for you. Let's say he did it. He conducted a false flag. What was that false flag about? Do you remember?
So the false flag was at a time where what happened was Yeltsin had a 1% approval rating. Putin was the number 2 in charge towards the end. He had a 1% approval rating as well. Yeltsin gets on the phone with Bill Clinton and says, hey, I'm going to introduce you to my number 2. He's going to be the next president. Right. Clinton's like, the fuck are you talking about? You're about to be put on trial by your people after you lose power. Then the apartments fall down. It then is blamed on the Chechens. They start the Second Chechen War. Putin becomes the wartime leader. He moves up the election.
Yes.
You know, this is a democratic leader moving up.
Who said democratic leader? Putin was never a democratic leader.
You understand? What? You understand what I mean? Like when the connotation is like I shouldn't say democratic, but you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's supposed to be a democratic election. Okay. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah. But like moves up the election while he's a wartime leader and his polls went up to 55%. Wins the election, then basically never gives up power. Like 1 plus 1 plus 1, and then when you look at the actual evidence in the towers, like...
Okay, so here's the thing. I told you I'll make it super easy for you. Okay. Let's say it was the red flag operation, a false flag operation, right? Okay, great. So that operation happened so that they could have an excuse to go into Chechnya and start another war, okay? So the question is, was Chechen war out looking at now where we are, correct way to do things or not? Because I'll give you a number 2. 90% of historians and political analysts would say, yes, it was. Because look at Chechnya now. So what he did there, let's say, if he did, which I, again, disagree, and I'll send you work to read, but let's say he did that, false flag, and killed like 4 people.
It wasn't 4 people. It was a lot more than 4 people.
Okay, so let's say 50.
It was more than...
Even one is a tragedy, but let's say 50, okay? So
it was hundreds, but
he ended... Hundreds? No way.
Yeah, it was multiple towers.
It's not hundreds.
Can we do the Russian apartment bombings, 1999? Yeah,
there's no way it's hundreds, like casualties. But anyway, so he goes into Chechnya that is about to become a huge problem, right? And I told
307.
you 307. Okay, I was wrong about that. So let's say the Chechen war. If he has not gone and dealt with that, right, that would become the downfall of the entire region. Everyone agrees that what Chechnya is today, like with complete calm in Chechnya. And yes, some Russians say, well, kind of, he won Chechnya by money in a way because he, puts a lot of money into Chechnya. But the reality is there is no conflict. The reality is the hottest spot was neutralized, right? That could have caused thousands and thousands more deaths. So now make the analysis as a leader. Okay, 307 people. Okay, so 307 people versus millions that could follow. You make the choice. Hey, you're Vladimir Putin, remember? You make the choice.
I think it's the same hypocrisy of things we look at in the U.S. where we've made these choices.
No, it's not, because you don't really have the enemies. What enemies do you have? Like, okay, so...
In the United States?
Yeah, who's your enemy? Really, who's your enemy? I mean, we made everyone our enemy, but who was there? Like, was Vietnam your enemy? The country that you invaded for, like, on a lie?
No.
Is that, yeah. So who was it? Who was the
Gulf
enemy?
of Tonkin was a false flag.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm talking about.
So then the question
That's exactly
is,
who's attacking you?
Who's attacking you? Who's your enemy?
In that case, that was a false flag that we did.
I agree. What about 9/11? What about 9/11? Who attacked you? What about 9/11?
So with the apartment bombings, it's the same argument. That's my point.
How is the same argument? You have West funding Chechen terrorists, which we know is true. Like they funded not only Chechen terrorists, but you have West funding Georgian terrorists. Like, you know it's going to explode. They are putting funding. These people are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. You're going to allow these groups to become what Abkhazia became for Georgians? Are you kidding me? Like, how is that the same case? I don't recall anyone funding Vietnamese to attack you. I don't think anyone trying to destabilize the United States with militia groups from the inside putting money into it. Did Russia do it? No. So it's not the same case. I'm sorry. It's not the same case. So this is a new president who came in the most complex region. His enemies, by the way, in the CIA and MI6 are using the complexity of the region, funding these militia groups. Have you ever heard of what happened to Beslan?
In the school?
Right.
Yeah.
Who was that? Was it Russia too? What was Beslan about? Pull up Beslan's numbers for me. Or have you ever heard like theater siege of almost 1,000 people? Mm-hmm. Who was that? What was that about?
They blame that one on the Chechens.
Thank you. That's all I have to say. So you have enemies funding these groups, and you're not supposed to do anything about it. Just let them become Afghanistan. Because if Russia ever became Afghanistan, we would have a disaster on our hands, ever. Afghanistan is Afghanistan when Russia, such an entity, gets to that level, which if not for Putin, it would have. And to answer your question too, and why I became from a hater of Putin to actually, I understand this guy's situation and I actually think that he's a good leader, is very simple. Because yes, did he manipulate the constitution to stay in power? Yes. Would you have a better candidate other than him to put the shit together in Russia and keep the region glued? Name one. Name one. And I will say, you know what? F Putin. He should have gone. If you could give me one candidate that who could have done it, nobody. Nobody.
How do we know it's no one if no one's ever been given the opportunity?
Yeah, they have been given. Alexander, what's his name? The guy, the opposition.
Navalny,
yeah. So Navalny was given a great opportunity to be the opposer of Putin.
They threw him in prison, though.
Yeah, you know why?
Why?
Who did he have dealings with?
So you think he was a full blown Western asset?
Of course he was, Julian. That's the thing. What I will agree with, one thing that I will agree with is that he fails in conducting like fair. How do I say this? What Putin fails in is, and I don't know, maybe he has somebody like after him, but he fails in creating what Yeltsin created with Putin. Like he fails in creating an heir to his empire. Like, and I don't know if he has one. People say he has one. I don't know. But the reality is if Putin did not rule Russia for like from Yeltsin period time to now, we would be in a huge shit. Because right now I can tell you, I don't have any hope that next Russian leader is going to be as moderate as Putin. Because you don't know who, like, what
you don't know who's next in charge. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so would you, like, look at Putin's persona. Every educated economist, financier, like Jeffrey Sachs, for example, great example, which I still don't know why Jeffrey Sachs is not advising someone like Trump. And we have hawks advising him in the most sensitive situation we are in right now. So everyone would agree that Putin had huge restraint for like almost 7 years in a row. And I would say even more. He exercised a huge restraint against us and against Britain of what we've done and how we manipulated the agreements, walked out of it. Why did we walk out from a anti-missile ballistics treaty? Who forced us to? What was the case exactly, right? So again, remember, you're Putin, so think like him. Like to him, everything that you did is a betrayal. I came to you as a friend. Everything you did is a betrayal. And then your only argument against me as a persona is that, well, you're not a democratic leader. How can I be?
Yeah, you're just a bad guy. Yeah.
Well, okay. So here's how I dismantle that in 2 ways, okay? Number 1, how can I ever be democratic leader when you're trying to overthrow me every single time? What I'm supposed to put my trust in, like every random Russian, that they are not going to buy into your propaganda? How can I be a democratic leader? I gave you a Georgian example of things, right? So that's one. So let's say your answer is like, well, just be tougher. Just be tougher and don't allow them to overthrow you. Okay, great. Let's take that. Second, your argument is just be a democratic leader. Aren't we the guys who put dictators everywhere? Like in Latin America, we overthrew the democratic leader Mossadegh. He was democratic. Why did we want from him? So your argument is this: you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite if you do that.
I'm not. By the way, I ain't arguing with the fact that America's got a lot of hypocrites in the bureaucracy, including the people that are the loudest about a guy like Vladimir Putin. I have no doubt about that.
So what we are trying to work out here, like with us, me and you, Julian, is very simple. Is Vladimir Putin a dictator? He has to be, and yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's not a democratic leader. He never argued he was, ever. I don't remember Vladimir Putin coming out and arguing, I'm a democratic leader, look at me, look at my democracy. He never did. But he also argued that the situation he's in doesn't allow anything else. And it's true. It's true. Explain to me just now what we talked about. How are you going to do that? Like, no one wants to see more democratic Russia than Russian people. But they also understand what's at stake. You know what I mean? Like, that's why they support their president. And there was a time when Russia ate it all and did not support the Tsar. And they killed Russian Tsar. And it resulted in Bolshevism and communism. And this time, they've got his back. They've learned the lesson. You know what I mean?
How do you... God, there's a lot of directions to go. There's a lot of directions to go with that.
The only thing I would say that I can never, ever forgive Vladimir Putin as a person is there was a guy that he could have talked to, and he chose not to. And
Nemtsov?
Yeah. There was a guy...
killed him 100 yards from the fucking palace.
Yes. So this guy, I will say this. Nemtsov bought our propaganda, the propaganda part. Not, like, he also bought the American dream, which was true, right? But he bought a lot of our propaganda, unfortunately. And he started talking with the talking points of globalists. Like, if you look at his interviews, which till today I adore him, like, as a person. I liked him a lot. He was like, just looking into his eyes.
So interesting.
Right?
You like him and you still adore him.
What do you mean?
It's just very...
adore who?
It's like...
Adore...
Nemtsov.
Nemtsov, yeah. I like him. Yeah. What's wrong with Nemtsov?
There's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah. So?
It's just interesting the way that you talk about Putin and then talk about Nemtsov. It's very similar to saying you adore the Red Sox and the Yankees.
I would disagree. But I understand for you it looks that way,
They
right?
hated each other. One killed the other.
So doesn't mean that,
daylight.
Listen, they both wanted the same thing. They both want the best for Russia. They just, no, I'm telling you.
One executed the other.
Yes.
Because he disagreed with him.
So
what do you mean so?
Okay, so again.
There's video of it.
Okay, so according to your logic, then all our leaders, all our presidents in the United States, how many people they have killed? Like,
I have no doubt we've had some of the scummiest people.
Okay, then what makes Putin different?
Nothing makes that different.
That's all. So, but you have to agree though. When you said, oh, Elizabeth, you have no idea how many times I go out and all these people tell me this stuff because that's the opinion. Would you disagree that the opinion is that Vladimir Putin is this terrible, terrible person when he's not doing anything different than all the American leaders? Like, what is he doing any different? In fact, I would argue he's better than most of our leaders. Most, not all, but most. I'm not counting Kennedy or Lincoln or any of them. I'm talking about Bush Sr. I'm talking about Bill Clinton. I would argue that he's like 3 times better than these people put together. What these people do exactly, because again, you're judging as a personal level. I'm judging as look at everything. The guy literally dragged his country out of depression, made his country a superpower. His people love him. He stands for the right principles. No transies, no weird like animal shit here. Like, you do not touch the kids. It's off limits. You do not do that. Like, Christianity is our religion. That's we go. Okay. So then you have Bill Clinton, Bush Sr., and all these people that dismantled American myth. Okay. Would we argue on that? Like, literally gutted America, got into ton of wars. Our economies were handed over, by the way, the reins to the corporate world that we talked about now. So did the completely opposite for their countries. How are they better than Putin in any shape and form?
Just so that I can put this on record, I don't view Bush Cheney as better than Putin at all. At all. In fact, they were able with their GDP and power to cause more damage than that is. I don't disagree with that. I think we have massive problems in our bureaucracy and leadership here today that is on a level that I don't think it's ever been.
Right.
I'd like to think that's fixable. And there's a lot on the bone that you just said, and I'm trying to process this because
I know it's not the most popular thing, right?
No, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm going to do it for a long time after this, and I'm always trying to get better at what I do.
Right.
And I think that...
And by the way, it's crazy to me that you know who Nemtsov is. Like, you know that how many people don't, and I'm like trying to keep his memory alive.
I know
like,
all these ones.
It's crazy.
I was the guy trying to tell people about Putin in 2016. And no one fucking listened. But,
right? Yeah.
You know, I think today.
And by the way,
I think Elizabeth, I just want to respond to some of this because there's a lot you just put out there. I think today in this discussion so far, however far we are in, you know, maybe like an hour, 50 minutes or something. I think that I'm gonna look at this tape and see a fuck ton of mistakes in how to handle certain things that I have made on my end. This has not been a good day for me, but that's not your fault. That's my fault.
I think it was an amazing day for you. What are you talking about?
I think there were a couple times where I jumped the gun on your argument that wasn't fair to you. And I also think there were multiple times where there are hypocrisies within my own country that I know in my head that I didn't lead with out front that should be led with, so that if you're going to make a point, you don't throw a stone from a glass house. And I'm sure people are going to let me hear it on that, and I understand that. I look at these arguments online, and I see, because I want to stay with this point and have you be able to flesh all this out about Putin. You just did a lot, but there's a lot more on the bone here. I see two camps that form online. People that say, you're either a fucking
Putin puppet. I've been called that before.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll get called it again today. And I'm not saying that's fair. I'm saying I'm sure you'll get called that.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
And then you will see people in the other direction, whatever the opposite of that is,
that glorify him and shit like that. Yeah, that's not right either.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What the full truth is on fucking anything. None of us do. I can go off of things that define people as bad and then also live in a world where they are still in power, so I have to deal with that. Now, people, I'll give you another example because I think this is an important distinction. Unfortunately, whether you like it or I like it, I certainly don't. Money does run the world. And when you look at Putin, when they make the comparisons between him and Hitler, that is wrong. It is wrong, and I will. There's two main reasons for that. He wasn't as bad as Hitler in killing people. I have plenty of problems with Putin in that department, but he was no Hitler. Secondly, Vladimir Putin's country has a GDP the size of Italy. Whether you like that or not, Germany had the fastest growing GDP in the world. They were taking over countries, breaking every fucking treaty around the world, starting wars on fucking 3 fronts and eventually 4. Like, it was a completely different situation. So you have to look at that scope. You can say you don't like Putin. You can say you hate that, you think he's a murderous psychopath, and I would agree with that. But like, you have to understand that he is a piece on the table. And you can't just wave your wand and get him out of there as much as you may want to. Because you then give him exactly what he wants. You give him saying, look, The West is trying to overthrow all of us. They're the people that run the world. They're the bad guy here. I have to be able to kill these people. I have to be able to take down those apartments. I have to be able to fucking start these wars. I have to be able to, you know, and not to say every war he started. I have to be able to, you know, hold on to power for 25 years because I'm the only guy that can do it. And by the way, someone that would come in would definitely be way worse than me.
Right.
You give him all the ammunition to do that when you take the diplomatic actions that have been taken
Here's the problem
post-Soviet
with that.
Union. I will agree with that. What I do want to say to you just before you respond is that when this isn't your fault, but seeing as you're from Georgia, which is not Russia, to be clear, but you're from Georgia, you moved here, that's great. You live here, you renounce your citizenship in Georgia, you claim to love it here, and that's awesome. People can cherry pick what you say when you are so strong. Like, actually, I understand Putin and he's a good guy. Like, I'm not even saying this is your fault, but you can play right into the hands of the people who want to discredit you because they're like, oh, well, she's got to be a fucking Fed sent
I
here.
have one thing to say. I don't give a fuck. You know why? I'm going to say what the truth is and what I know to be the truth. And they can discredit me all day. They've been trying from the day I did the interview in Georgia, which I'll tell you about, and this is how the system works. I guarantee you there will be a ton of comments where I'm racist, I'm a Russian puppet.
Fuck 'em.
Yeah, fuck them.
I mean, it's it is people... And that's the beauty of the freedom of the internet. People can say whatever they want and they're going to have their opinions. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect you. Like, you know where your heart is at. You know what it's about. I do feel like sometimes, you know, like woke culture was insane on every level. Like, you're not allowed to say words, which is just crazy to me. I think I worry that, and this isn't what you're saying, by the way, to be clear. I'm talking about a separate conversation here, but I always worry about the antidote to anything, because sometimes it feels like we're being used against ourselves online to draw ourselves into different cultural corners and to notice differences across all different groups and rally around just our group and things like that. And I don't think it means like, oh, people are racist or anything like that. I think we're being preyed upon with our worst fears sometimes. And what I try to do is, like, I'm sure I fail sometimes, but like, I do my best with this show to be like, look at all the different people around the world who are doing cool different shit. I do all different topics. I do all different types of people, all different backgrounds. Like, you ain't got to agree with all of it. But you're going to learn different perspectives. And it's like I've cited this a million times. It's like the old Bruce Lee quote: take what's good, discard what's bad, get on with your life. You know what I mean? That's what I try to do with people. And I think that the judgment that is cast automatically, where people are assuming the worst intentions, is very dystopian and 1984-ish sometimes.
Exactly.
Right?
Do you feel like maybe that's intentional, or it's just a product of brainwash?
I think it's both.
Right?
I think there's people who intentionally pull the strings, like the puppeteer, to do that. And then I think that think of the smartest person you know out there, everyone listening. Even the brightest person you know is not susceptible to being pulled into a cult-like structure or being brainwashed with something. We are all susceptible to it, of course, myself included there. Like, you know, I think that the internet makes that easier than ever. And you have accounts that aren't even real, that are being wielded by every country, including ours. Yeah. You know, to create it's just a giant like blob of noise propaganda war at all times from every angle. And it's just like, turn that fucking thing off. Get it out of here. I don't want to know. I don't care. I'll talk with people, meet them where they are, and we'll let it land where it lands. That's kind of how I look at it, you know?
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Can I run to the bathroom real fast?
Yes.
Let's go to pee.
Yes.
All right, we'll be right back.